Hey everyone, welcome to Cartoonology. Today I want to argue that SpongeBob SquarePants is the happiest character in the history of fiction. And I want to explain why that is one of the most terrifying things any show has ever put on screen. Because here is what we never talk about. We all know SpongeBob is happy. That is the whole point of the character. He has been smiling for over 25 years and 270 episodes. And nobody has ever been able to make him stop. We all grew up with it. We took it for granted. SpongeBob is happy. The water is wet. Move on. But what if we did not move on? What if we actually laid out everything that has happened to this character? Every betrayal, every rejection, every time his body was ripped apart, every time the people he loved told him he was not enough, and asked one simple question: how is he still smiling? What is his happiness actually made of? And what does it mean that nothing can make it go away? Because when you start pulling on that thread, something shifts. The happy little sponge stops looking like a cartoon character and starts looking like something else entirely. Something that, once you see it, you cannot unsee. But before we begin, I'd just like to kindly ask you all to subscribe. It's completely free, and it really helps us improve the videos for this wonderful community we've managed to build. Anyway, that's enough. Let's begin. I'm ready. The foundation of SpongeBob's happiness. There is a moment at the very beginning of SpongeBob SquarePants that most people forget about. It happens in the first episode, Help Wanted, and it is so small, so quick, that you probably did not even notice it. SpongeBob wakes up, and before he does anything else, before he feeds Gary, before he brushes his teeth, before he even opens his eyes all the way, he is already excited. He jumps out of bed like the day itself is a gift somebody left on his doorstep. His foghorn alarm goes off, and where most people would groan and roll over, SpongeBob launches himself into the air with pure joy. And then he says it, the line that would go on to define his entire character for over 2 decades. I'm ready. That line is not just a catchphrase. It is a window into something much deeper about who SpongeBob SquarePants really is. Because SpongeBob does not say, I'm ready, because something good is about to happen to him. He says it because he wakes up that way every single morning. He is ready before there is anything to be ready for. His happiness does not arrive in response to good news. It does not show up because somebody said something nice to him. It does not depend on the weather or his mood or whether his neighbor Squidward screamed at him the night before. It is just there, waiting, built into him like the square shape of his pants or the holes in his body. And if you really stop and think about that, if you really sit with what that means across 13 seasons and 3 movies, it starts to feel less like a funny cartoon trait and more like something genuinely strange. But let us start at the beginning. In Help Wanted, SpongeBob has one dream. He wants to work at the Krusty Krab. That is it. Not to be rich, not to be famous, not to travel the world or become the most powerful person in Bikini Bottom. He wants to flip burgers. He wants to stand behind a grill in a fast food restaurant and cook Krabby Patties for the rest of his life. And when he walks up to the Krusty Krab for the first time to apply, he gets nervous. He actually gets cold feet and starts to run away. But Patrick stops him. Patrick, his best friend who lives under a rock, literally a rock, blocks his path and pushes him forward. And SpongeBob goes inside and gets the job. And in that moment, watching his face light up, you see something that defines the entire show going forward. SpongeBob has found his purpose, and his purpose is the smallest, simplest thing imaginable. He wants to cook. He wants to serve people food. And that is enough. That is more than enough. For SpongeBob, that is everything. Now, most shows would use this as a starting point. They would say, okay, SpongeBob starts happy, and then the show is about him trying to stay happy while the world throws problems at him. And in some ways, that is what SpongeBob SquarePants does. But there is something different about how this show handles it, and you notice it more and more the longer you watch. SpongeBob does not try to stay happy. He does not fight to hold on to his joy. He does not have a strategy or a plan or some deep inner strength that keeps him going when things get hard. He is just happy, automatically, by default, like a machine that only has one setting, and that setting is cranked all the way up to 10 at all times. You see this over and over again in the early seasons. In Bubble Stand, SpongeBob spends the entire episode blowing bubbles. That is the plot. He blows bubbles, and he is thrilled about it. He charges people 25 cents for bubble blowing lessons and creates these incredible, massive, elaborate bubbles. And the whole time he is smiling so hard it looks looks like his face might split in half. Squidward hates it. Squidward thinks it is the stupidest thing he has ever seen. But SpongeBob does not care. Not because he is ignoring Squidward, not because he is being stubborn or difficult. He genuinely does not understand why blowing bubbles would not make someone happy. To him, bubbles are magical every single time. In jellyfishing, SpongeBob and Patrick spend the day catching jellyfish with nets. That is the episode. They run around jellyfish fields, they catch jellyfish, they let them go, and they have the time of their lives doing it. SpongeBob treats jellyfishing like it is the most important activity in the world. He has a special net. He knows the jellyfish by species. He approaches it with the focus and dedication of someone performing surgery. And again, Squidward thinks it is idiotic. But SpongeBob is not performing for anyone. He is not jellyfishing to impress people, or to post about it, or to prove something. He does it because the act itself, the running and the catching, and the being outside with his best friend, fills him with a kind of joy that most characters on television never get to experience. And this is where it gets interesting, because SpongeBob's happiness is not just about the big things. It is about everything. He wakes up happy. He goes to sleep happy. He walks to work happy. He walks home from work happy. He is happy when he sees Squidward, and happy when Squidward slams the door in his face. He is happy when it rains, and happy when the sun is out. He is happy when Gary meows at him, and happy when Gary ignores him. There is a running gag throughout the series where SpongeBob will find joy in the most boring, mundane, ordinary activities that exist. Mopping the floor at the Krusty Krab, taking out the trash, washing dishes. Most people would see these things as chores. SpongeBob sees them as opportunities. In the episode Graveyard Shift, Mr. Krabs decides to keep the Krusty Krab open 24 hours a day. Squidward is horrified. Working all night in a greasy restaurant with SpongeBob is his worst nightmare. But SpongeBob? SpongeBob is overjoyed. He gets to work more. He gets to cook more Krabby Patties. He gets to spend more time in his favorite place on Earth. The fact that he is being asked to work longer hours for almost certainly no extra pay does not cross his mind for a single second. He is just glad to be there. And this brings up something important about SpongeBob that the show establishes very early on. His happiness is not a reward. It is not something he earns after a hard day. It is not the result of good things happening to him. His happiness is his starting point. It is where he begins every single day, every single episode, every single interaction, and everything that happens to him throughout an episode. All the bad stuff, all the pain, all the rejection, all the chaos. It all pushes against this starting point, but it rarely moves it. SpongeBob always comes back. He always resets. He always wakes up the next morning and says, "I'm ready," again, like nothing happened. Think about what we learn about SpongeBob just from the first season alone. He lives in a pineapple at 124 Conch Street. His pet snail Gary is basically a cat that meows. His best friend Patrick has trouble remembering what he had for breakfast. His other neighbor, Squidward, openly hates him and tells him so on a regular basis. His boss, Mr. Krabs, cares about money more than he cares about anything else in the universe, including SpongeBob's well-being. His driving teacher, Mrs. Puff, has a nervous breakdown every time he sits behind the wheel. He fails his driving test over and over and over again. And none of this bothers him. Not really. Not in any lasting way. In Pizza Delivery, SpongeBob and Squidward get lost trying to deliver a pizza. They are stranded in the middle of nowhere. Squidward is hungry, exhausted, and furious. He blames SpongeBob for everything. And what does SpongeBob do? He stays focused on the delivery. He protects that pizza like it is the most valuable thing on the planet. Not because he is getting paid extra. Not because Mr. Krabs threatened him. Because a customer ordered a pizza, and SpongeBob believes that customer deserves to get their pizza, and delivering it is the right thing to do. When they finally arrive and the customer yells at Squidward for not bringing him a drink, SpongeBob breaks down crying. Not because of anything that happened to him during the whole nightmare of a trip. He cries because the customer was rude to Squidward. He cries for someone else. And then Squidward does something unexpected. He takes that pizza and slams the door in the rude customer's face. And SpongeBob smiles. He is happy again. Just like that. Because Squidward stood up for him, and that tiny act of kindness was enough to erase hours of suffering. This is the pattern that the show sets up in its first season, and it never really changes. SpongeBob's happiness is his constant, his default, his home base. No matter what happens, no matter how bad things get, he always returns to it. And in the early episodes, this feels warm. It feels inspiring. It feels like the show is saying, hey, look at this little yellow sponge who finds joy in everything. What a nice message for kids. What a sweet, simple, wholesome character. But here's the thing. The show does not stop at season 1. It goes on for over 270 episodes across more than 2 decades. And as it goes on, SpongeBob's happiness does not change. But the world around him does. The things that happen to him get worse. The way people treat him gets crueler. The situations he finds himself in get darker. And through all of it, through every horrible, painful, unfair, soul-crushing thing that Bikini Bottom throws at him, SpongeBob keeps smiling. He keeps saying, I'm ready. He keeps waking up excited. And at some point, if you are really paying attention, you stop watching and thinking, what a happy little guy. And you start thinking, wait, how is he still happy? How is this possible? What is wrong with him? Because SpongeBob's happiness is not just a character trait, it is a mystery. It is a question the show keeps asking without ever fully answering. What kind of person can endure what SpongeBob endures and come out the other side unchanged? What kind of mind works that way? Is SpongeBob truly the happiest character in fiction? Or is there something going on beneath that smile that nobody is talking about? Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. To even begin answering that, we need to look at the one thing SpongeBob cares about more than anything else in his life. More than Patrick, more than Gary, more than jellyfish, or bubbles, or karate with Sandy. We need to talk about his job at the Krusty Krab. And more importantly, we need to talk about what his boss, Mr. Krabs, has been doing to him since the very first episode. Because when you actually sit down and look at the numbers, look at what SpongeBob is being paid, look at how he is treated, look at what he gives and what he gets back, the picture that forms is not heartwarming at all. It is something much, much darker. Section 2. The employee who pays his boss to work. If you walked into a restaurant and saw a young man working the grill with the biggest smile on his face, flipping burgers with the speed and skill of somebody who has been doing it for years, you would probably think he loves his job. And you would be right. But then if somebody told you that this young man was being paid almost nothing, that his boss once paid him in fake money, that he actually used to pay his boss for the right to work there, and that none of this has ever once made him question whether he should find a different job, you would probably think something was very wrong. You would be right about that too. SpongeBob's relationship with the Krusty Krab is one of the most important things in the entire show. It is not just a place where he works, it is the center of his life. It is his identity. It is the thing he thinks about when he wakes up in the morning, and the thing he dreams about when he goes to sleep at night. In Fear of a Krabby Patty, SpongeBob has a nightmare, and even in his nightmare, the thing haunting him is a giant Krabby Patty. That is how deep this goes. The Krusty Krab has burrowed so far into his brain that it has taken over his subconscious mind. Now, for most people watching the show, SpongeBob's love for his job is funny. It is a running joke. Haha, this little sponge really loves flipping burgers. How silly. But when you actually look at what his job looks like from the outside, when you look at what his boss, Mr. Krabs, does to him on a regular basis, the comedy starts to peel away, and what you find underneath is deeply unsettling. Let us start with the money. How much does SpongeBob get paid to work at the Krusty Krab? The show has answered this question multiple times across different episodes, and every single answer is worse than the last. In the episode Big Pink Loser, Patrick gets a job at the Krusty Krab and starts copying everything SpongeBob does. At one point in the episode, SpongeBob says something that most viewers either missed or thought was just a throwaway joke. He says that when Mr. Krabs first hired him, SpongeBob was paying Mr. Krabs $100 an hour to work there. Not the other way around. SpongeBob was paying his boss to let him cook burgers. And he says it casually. He says it like it is completely normal. Like of course you would pay your employer for the honor of working at their restaurant. He does not question it. He does not complain about it. He brings it up like a fun little memory from his early days on the job. Then we get to the episode Bummer Vacation, where Mr. Krabs is trying to send SpongeBob on a forced vacation because he has too many unused vacation days. During this episode, Mr. Krabs holds up a dime and SpongeBob says that it is more than he makes in a year. A dime. 10 cents. SpongeBob is telling us that his annual salary at the Krusty Krab is less than 10 cents. And again, he does not say this with anger or frustration or sadness. He just states it as a fact, like telling you what time it is. But it gets even worse. In SpongeBob You're Fired, the episode where Mr. Krabs actually fires SpongeBob to save money, it is revealed that SpongeBob's yearly salary is a nickel. 5 cents. For an entire year of work. 5 cents for 12 months of waking up early, standing over a hot grill, serving hundreds of customers a day, working overtime, working holidays, and doing it all with a smile. 5 cents. And the show does not stop there. In one course meal, we learn that Mr. Krabs has been paying SpongeBob with fake money. Not real currency. Fake bills that have no value at all. In other episodes, it is mentioned that Mr. Krabs has paid SpongeBob in something called Wacky Bucks, which is basically play money, like the kind you would find in a board game. SpongeBob accepts all of this without question. He takes his fake money, puts it in his pocket, and goes home whistling. Now, compare this to what SpongeBob actually does for the Krusty Krab. He is not just some random employee. He is the reason the restaurant exists. The Krusty Krab is famous for one thing and one thing only, the Krabby Patty. And who makes the Krabby Patty? SpongeBob. Every single one. Every patty that leaves that kitchen. Every patty that keeps the customers coming back. Every patty that puts money in Mr. Krabs' pocket was cooked by SpongeBob. Without him, the restaurant falls apart. We see this directly in SpongeBob You're Fired. The moment SpongeBob is gone, Mr. Krabs tries to cook the burgers himself and fails miserably. The food is terrible. Customers start leaving. The business is falling apart. Because SpongeBob is not just an employee. He is the entire engine that keeps the Krusty Krab running. And Mr. Krabs knows this. He knows exactly how valuable SpongeBob is. But he also knows something else. He knows that SpongeBob will never leave. He knows that SpongeBob loves the Krusty Krab so much that he would work there for free. SpongeBob actually offers to work for free in SpongeBob You're Fired when he is being let go. And Mr. Krabs turns him down only because he found out it is illegal. Not because he felt bad about it. Not because he thought it was wrong. Because it was against the law. If it had been legal, Mr. Krabs would have happily let SpongeBob work for nothing. Then there is the Employee of the Month award. This is the thing SpongeBob cares about almost as much as cooking. It is a framed picture of the best worker each month, and SpongeBob has won it so many times that the wall of the Krusty Krab is covered in his photographs. In the Season 1 episode, Employee of the Month, SpongeBob has already won 26 months in a row. He is so obsessed with winning number 27 that he goes to war with Squidward over it. He sneaks into Squidward's house to destroy his alarm clock. He digs a pit in front of Squidward's door so he cannot leave. He stays up all night setting traps. He loses his mind over a piece of paper in a frame. By the time we get to the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, SpongeBob reveals that he has won 374 consecutive Employee of the Month awards. 374. That means he has been winning the award every single month for over 31 years straight. He has an entire wall of his bedroom dedicated to these awards. He shows them to Gary with pride. He believes that this incredible streak proves he should be named the new manager of the Krusty Krab too. And here is the part that hurts. He does not get the job. Mr. Krabs passes him over. He tells SpongeBob that he is just a kid. SpongeBob, the guy who has given over 3 decades of his life to this restaurant for almost no money, who has won the Employee of the Month award 374 times in a row, who is the sole reason the business is successful, is told he is not good enough, and SpongeBob is devastated. But we will get to that later. For now, focus on what the Employee of the Month award actually is. In Employee of the Month, Squidward tells SpongeBob the truth about it. He says, plain as day, that the award is a scam, that Mr. Krabs gives it out to make his employees work harder for no extra money. And Squidward is right. That is exactly what it is. The award costs Mr. Krabs nothing. It is a piece of paper in a cheap frame, but it keeps SpongeBob motivated, keeps him working at full speed, keeps him cooking hundreds of Krabby Patties a day without ever asking for a raise, a promotion, or basic respect. The Employee of the Month award is a tool. It is how Mr. Krabs keeps SpongeBob trapped without chains. And the most terrifying part is that SpongeBob knows Squidward said this. He heard him. He was standing right there, and he chose not to believe it. He looked at the wall of his own photographs and decided that the award was real, that it meant something, that his boss was genuinely recognizing his hard work. Because the alternative, the idea that he has been manipulated, that his effort is being exploited, that his happiness at work is being used against him, that is a thought SpongeBob cannot afford to have. If that thought gets in, if it takes root, then everything falls apart. His whole world collapses. So he pushes it away and keeps smiling. This pattern repeats itself throughout the entire series. In Squid on Strike, Squidward tries to organize a labor strike because Mr. Krabs has been treating them unfairly. He makes picket signs, he gives speeches. He tries to teach SpongeBob about workers' rights and fair pay, and SpongeBob does not understand any of it. Not because he is stupid, but because understanding it would mean admitting that his dream job is actually a nightmare. When the strike ends badly and SpongeBob accidentally destroys the Krusty Krab, Mr. Krabs forces both of them to work off the debt. The episode ends with a shot of SpongeBob and Squidward still working at the Krusty Krab as skeletons. They have been working there forever. They will never stop. They will never be free. And the show plays it as a joke, but when you sit with that image, it is one of the darkest endings in the entire series. In Graveyard Shift, Mr. Krabs decides to keep the Krusty Krab open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Not because the customers need it, because he wants more money. And SpongeBob cheers. He is thrilled. More work means more time at the Krusty Krab, and more time at the Krusty Krab means more happiness. The same thing happens in Fear of a Krabby Patty, where Plankton's scheme forces the Krusty Krab to stay open non-stop for 43 straight days. 43 days without closing. SpongeBob works every single one of those days. No breaks, no days off. And for most of it, he is happy to do it. Think about what kind of workplace this actually is. The owner pays his employees almost nothing, and sometimes pays them in fake money. He has charged his employees to use the bathroom. He has charged them for breathing. He has charged them for standing at the cash register. He deducts from their paychecks for goofing off. He makes them work 24-hour shifts with no overtime pay. He has sold his best employee's soul for pocket change. And through all of this, his best employee, the one who keeps the entire business alive, is grateful. SpongeBob is grateful to be there. He thanks Mr. Krabs for the opportunity. He hugs his spatula at night. He sings songs about how much he loves the Krusty Krab. This is what makes SpongeBob's happiness so complicated. Because on one level, yes, it is genuinely beautiful that he finds such deep joy in something as simple as cooking. There is something pure about a person who loves their work so completely that money does not even enter the equation. But on another level, his happiness is the very thing that allows the exploitation to continue. If SpongeBob were unhappy, if he complained, if he demanded fair pay, if he walked out, Mr. Krabs would have to change. The Krusty Krab cannot function without him. SpongeBob has all the power in this situation and does not know it. Or worse, he knows it and does not care. Because here's the thing about SpongeBob's happiness at work. It is real. He is not faking it. He is not putting on a brave face. He genuinely, deeply, truly loves flipping those burgers. And that is exactly what makes it so disturbing. A miserable employee being exploited is a tragedy. A happy employee being exploited is something else entirely. It is a system that has achieved perfection. It has found someone who will give everything and ask for nothing, and smile while doing it. And because SpongeBob smiles, nobody steps in, nobody helps. Nobody looks at his paycheck and says, "This is wrong." His happiness is the lock on his own cage, and he polished it himself. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But SpongeBob's relationship with Mr. Krabs goes deeper than just money and work, because there is one episode that reveals, more than any other, exactly how little SpongeBob means to his boss. One episode where Mr. Krabs is given a choice between SpongeBob's literal soul and a handful of coins. And the choice he makes tells you everything you need to know about what SpongeBob's loyalty has actually bought him. Section 3, 62 cents. When your boss sells your soul. There is a moment in Season 3 of SpongeBob SquarePants that should bother you a lot more than it does. It happens in the episode Born Again Krabs, and it is played for laughs. The audience is supposed to watch it, chuckle, and move on to the next episode. But if you actually stop and think about what happens in this scene, if you really sit with what it means for SpongeBob as a character, and what it says about the people in his life, it is one of the most devastating things to ever happen in a cartoon meant for children. Let us set the stage. The episode begins at closing time at the Krusty Krab. Squidward is thrilled because the workday is over. He is celebrating. And SpongeBob? SpongeBob is crying. Not because something bad happened. Not because someone hurt him. He is crying because the Krusty Krab is closing for the night and he has to stop working. That is how much he loves this place. The thought of going home and not being able to flip burgers for a few hours brings him to actual tears. While crying on the kitchen floor, SpongeBob notices something under the grill. It is an old Krabby Patty. Not just old, ancient. This thing has been sitting under the grill for so long that it is covered in mold. It is cold and hard and disgusting. SpongeBob picks it up, feels sorry for it the way you would feel sorry for a lost puppy, and throws it in the trash. That is the normal, sane thing to do with a rotten piece of food that has been growing mold on the floor of a restaurant kitchen. But then Mr. Krabs shows up. And Mr. Krabs does not see a disgusting, rotten, potentially dangerous piece of food. He sees something he paid for. He sees money, and there is no way in the world he is letting SpongeBob throw away something that cost him money, even if that something could make a person seriously sick. So he pulls it out of the trash, puts it back, and tells SpongeBob that they are going to sell it to the next customer who orders a Krabby Patty. Not a fresh one. This old, moldy, rock-hard patty that has been festering under a grill for who knows how long. SpongeBob does not want to do this. He knows the patty is bad. He describes it as old and cold and very full of mold. But Mr. Krabs is his boss. Mr. Krabs is the man he respects more than almost anyone in Bikini Bottom. So he puts the patty in a cage, because by this point it has become so rotten that it is actually growling at him like an animal, and he waits for someone to order it. Nobody does. Customers take one look at it and leave. The Krusty Krab starts losing business. People stop coming in entirely because they are afraid of the rotten food. And Mr. Krabs still will not throw it away. He is so cheap, so completely consumed by his need to never waste a single cent, that he decides to eat the patty himself rather than admit he should have let SpongeBob toss it in the first place. He takes one bite, and it nearly kills him. Mr. Krabs ends up in the hospital. The doctor looks at his chart, starts shaking, drops the clipboard, screams, "Don't touch me!" and runs out of the room. That is how bad it is. And then things get much darker. The room changes, thunder crashes, and the Flying Dutchman appears. For those who do not know, the Flying Dutchman is a ghost pirate in the SpongeBob universe who collects souls. He is basically the show's version of Death, and he has come for Mr. Krabs. The Flying Dutchman tells Mr. Krabs that his time has come. He is being sent to Davy Jones's locker, which is the show's version of the afterlife for bad people. And the reason is not because Mr. Krabs committed some horrible crime. The reason is because he was cheap. Being cheap is listed as a terrible thing, bad enough to condemn you for eternity. Mr. Krabs tries to lie about his identity, telling the Dutchman that his name is Harold Flower. But the Dutchman checks with the nurse and the lie falls apart immediately. So Mr. Krabs is dragged to Davy Jones' locker. And it is exactly what it sounds like. It is a literal locker belonging to a guy named Davy Jones, and it is full of his dirty, sweaty gym socks. Mr. Krabs breaks down. He cries. He begs. He promises the Flying Dutchman that he will change his ways. He swears on his honor as a sailor that he will be generous from now on and never be cheap again. And the Flying Dutchman, against his better judgment, gives him another chance. Mr. Krabs returns to the Krusty Krab. Now, while he was gone, the restaurant had gone completely out of business. There is a sign hanging on the building that says, "Out of business." Squidward is going through Mr. Krabs' desk drawers, stealing his nose hair clippers and trying to crack open his safe. And SpongeBob? SpongeBob is standing there in his uniform, holding his spatula, crying. Squidward has told him what the doctor said, that Mr. Krabs is not coming back. But SpongeBob refuses to believe it. He is still wearing his hat. He is still holding his cooking tool. He is waiting for his boss to walk through that door because he believes, with every fiber of his being, that Mr. Krabs will come back. And he does. Mr. Krabs walks in and SpongeBob screams with joy and clings to him like a child reuniting with a parent. He is overwhelmed with happiness. His boss is alive. His restaurant can reopen. Everything is going to be okay. Now, here is where the episode takes a turn that reveals something fundamental about the relationship between SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs. True to his word, Mr. Krabs starts being generous. He gives away free food. He gives away free stuff from the Krusty Krab. He lets customers have whatever they want without paying. And the Krusty Krab goes bankrupt again, this time from the opposite problem. When SpongeBob and Squidward finally convince Mr. Krabs that all of this was real, that he actually died and came back, he looks at the hospital bill and screams. And just like that, he snaps right back to being cheap. The lesson is gone. The promise is forgotten. The fear of eternal punishment vanished the second money was involved. And then the Flying Dutchman shows up again. He is back to collect Mr. Krabs for breaking his promise. And this is where SpongeBob does something that, depending on how you look at it, is either the most noble or the most heartbreaking thing he has ever done. SpongeBob steps in front of the Flying Dutchman and defends Mr. Krabs. He stands between his boss and literal death and says, and these are his exact words from the episode, "This Mr. Krabs is the most generous, big-hearted, non-skinflinted crab in the whole sea. He says this about a man who pays him a nickel a year. He says this about a man who has paid him in fake money. He says this about a man who tried to serve customers a rotten patty rather than lose 52 cents. He says this about a man who just got back from being condemned to eternal punishment, specifically for being cheap. SpongeBob looks at all of this evidence, all of this history, everything he has personally experienced working for this man, and he declares that Mr. Krabs is the most generous person he knows. The Flying Dutchman responds with a line that cuts right through SpongeBob's defense. He says that Mr. Krabs would sell SpongeBob's soul for a couple of bucks. And SpongeBob, without hesitation, without a single moment of doubt, says he would bet his own soul that Mr. Krabs would not do that. He bets his soul. He puts his eternal existence on the line because he believes in his boss that much. The Flying Dutchman takes the bet. He tells Mr. Krabs that he can stay alive, but first he needs to settle this wager. The deal is simple. Mr. Krabs has to choose. He can have SpongeBob, his most loyal employee, the person who just risked his own soul to save him, the only reason his restaurant makes any money at all. Or he can have all the money in the Flying Dutchman's pocket. Mr. Krabs does not even blink. His first response is not, "Of course I choose SpongeBob." His first response is, "That depends. How much money are we talking about?" SpongeBob hears this and says, "Mr. Krabs?" in shock, because even SpongeBob, even the most trusting, most forgiving character in the entire show, can hear how wrong that question is. The Flying Dutchman shows Mr. Krabs the money. It is 62 cents. Not $62, not $620, 62 cents. Less than $1. Less than the cost of a candy bar. Less than the change you would find in your couch cushions. And Mr. Krabs says, "I'll take the money." He does not pause. He does not struggle with the decision. He does not look at SpongeBob and feel conflicted. He takes 62 cents over the soul of the person who just tried to save his life. SpongeBob screams his name one more time in horror as the Flying Dutchman picks him up and announces that the next stop is Davy Jones' locker. SpongeBob is carried away screaming. Now here is the part that makes this scene not just sad, but truly disturbing. Squidward, the character who openly hates SpongeBob, the character who spends most of the show trying to get away from SpongeBob, is furious. Squidward is the one who calls Mr. Krabs out. He is shocked and outraged that Mr. Krabs sold SpongeBob for 62 cents. The person who cannot stand SpongeBob is angrier about this betrayal than SpongeBob himself will be. And when Squidward confronts Mr. Krabs about what he has done, Mr. Krabs does not apologize. He does not feel shame. He says, "You think I could have gotten more?" He is not sorry he sold SpongeBob. He is wondering if the price was too low. Eventually, Mr. Krabs does feel bad. He cries. He says he wants SpongeBob back. He throws the 62 cents on the ground. And the Flying Dutchman does return SpongeBob. But not because of Mr. Krabs' change of heart. The Flying Dutchman brings SpongeBob back because SpongeBob would not stop talking. He tells Mr. Krabs that not giving SpongeBob back would be a fate worse than death. Because SpongeBob spent the entire time in Davy Jones's locker talking about jellyfishing and Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy non-stop. The Flying Dutchman says he only had SpongeBob for 30 seconds and could not take it anymore. So SpongeBob is back. He is standing in the Krusty Krab, alive and safe. And Mr. Krabs tries to address what just happened. He starts to say something about trading SpongeBob for pocket change. And SpongeBob cuts him off. He says, "Say no more, Mr. Krabs. You did it for the Krusty Krab. I would have done the same thing." And then, after a beat, he adds, "No." Everybody laughs. The episode ends. But let us stay with that moment for a second. SpongeBob forgives Mr. Krabs. Immediately, on the spot. No anger, no resentment, no period of hurt feelings. No, I need some time to think about this. His boss just sold his soul to a ghost pirate for the cost of a gumball, and SpongeBob forgives him before the sentence is even finished. He even tries to justify it. He says Mr. Krabs did it for the Krusty Krab, as if choosing 62 cents over your employee's eternal soul is a reasonable business decision that anyone would make. And yes, he does say no at the end, meaning he would not have done the same thing. So SpongeBob is aware, on some level, that what Mr. Krabs did was wrong. He knows it, he can see it. But knowing it and doing something about it are two completely different things. SpongeBob sees the truth for half a second, makes a small joke about it, and then the laugh track plays and everything goes back to normal. He will show up to work the next day. He will flip burgers with a smile. He will call Mr. Krabs Sir and treat him with respect and loyalty and love. Nothing changes. Nothing ever changes. This is the episode that reveals the darkest part of SpongeBob's happiness. It is not just that he is happy despite being mistreated. It is that his happiness actively prevents him from protecting himself. A normal person who got sold for 62 cents would quit. A normal person would walk out. A normal person would at least be angry for more than 3 seconds. But SpongeBob is not a normal person. SpongeBob is the happiest character in fiction. And his happiness means that no matter what you do to him, no matter how badly you betray him, no matter how little you value him, he will forgive you. Instantly. Completely. And he will come back for more. Mr. Krabs learned something that day, whether he meant to or not. He learned that there is no bottom. There is no line he can cross that will make SpongeBob leave. He can pay him nothing. He can work him to the bone. He can sell his soul for pocket change, and SpongeBob will still be there tomorrow morning, spatula in hand, smile on his face, ready to cook. That is not loyalty. That is something else entirely. That is a person whose happiness has become so permanent, so unbreakable, that it has replaced the part of them that knows when to walk away. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But Mr. Krabs is not the only person in SpongeBob's life who takes and takes without giving anything back. Because right next door, separated by only a few feet of sand, lives someone who has spent over 2 decades making it very clear that he does not want SpongeBob anywhere near him. And SpongeBob has spent those same 2 decades refusing to hear it. What happens when you love someone who genuinely, openly, repeatedly wishes you would disappear? SpongeBob has the answer, and it is not the one you would expect. Section 4. The Neighbor Who Won't Stop Loving You. SpongeBob SquarePants lives at 124 Conch Street. To his right lives Patrick Star, under a rock. To his left lives Squidward Tentacles, inside a house shaped like an Easter Island head. And this arrangement, these 3 homes sitting next to each other, on a quiet street at the bottom of the ocean, is the setting for one of the strangest relationships in the history of television. Because SpongeBob loves Squidward, he loves him deeply, openly, and without any conditions. And Squidward, for the vast majority of the show, cannot stand SpongeBob. He does not hide it. He does not sugarcoat it. He tells SpongeBob to his face, over and over and over again, that he does not like him, does not want to spend time with him, and wishes he would go away forever. And SpongeBob just keeps coming back, every single time, with the same smile, with the same excitement, with the same completely unshakable belief that Squidward is one of his very best friends in the whole world. To understand why this matters to the bigger picture of SpongeBob's happiness, you need to understand what Squidward actually says and does to SpongeBob across the series. This is not a case of mild annoyance. This is not a neighbor who is a little grumpy sometimes. Squidward slams doors in SpongeBob's face. He insults his intelligence. He mocks his job. He makes fun of his appearance. He calls his hobbies stupid. He tells him directly that he hates him. In the episode Graveyard Shift, when SpongeBob and Squidward are alone in the Krusty Krab at night, and they believe the hash-slinging slasher is coming to get them, Squidward turns to SpongeBob in what he thinks might be his final moments and says that he always sort of liked SpongeBob. That is the nicest thing Squidward says to SpongeBob in the first 3 seasons of the show. Sort of liked. And he only says it because he thinks they are both about to die. Now, how does SpongeBob respond to all of this rejection? He ignores it, not in a bitter way. Not in a way where he is pretending everything is fine while secretly hurting inside. He genuinely does not let it change how he feels about Squidward. Every morning, SpongeBob knocks on Squidward's door with the same energy. Every day at the Krusty Krab, he talks to Squidward like they are the closest friends in the world. He invites Squidward to go jellyfishing. He invites him to play games. He invites him to come over for dinner. And every time Squidward says no, every time he yells, every time he slams that door, SpongeBob absorbs it and moves on. He does not keep score. He does not hold a grudge. He just shows up again tomorrow and tries again. And here is the truly remarkable thing. SpongeBob is not wrong about Squidward. That is what makes this relationship so complicated, because buried underneath all of Squidward's anger and frustration and constant complaining, there are moments, real canonical moments across the entire run of the show where Squidward proves that he does care about SpongeBob. He just cannot admit it. And those moments only come out when something goes seriously wrong. The first time we see this clearly is in Pizza Delivery from season 1. SpongeBob and Squidward are stranded in the middle of nowhere trying to deliver a pizza. Squidward has been complaining and yelling at SpongeBob the entire time. He is hungry. He is tired. He wants to eat the pizza. SpongeBob refuses because the pizza belongs to the customer, and SpongeBob takes that responsibility seriously. They argue about it for most of the episode, but then they finally arrive at the customer's house, and the customer opens the door, and instead of being grateful that these two just survived a nightmare of a journey to bring him his food, he yells at them. He is furious because they did not bring him a drink. He screams at SpongeBob and throws the pizza box in his face. SpongeBob breaks down. He sits on the ground and cries. Not because of everything he went through on the delivery, not because Squidward was mean to him, because the customer was unhappy, because he failed to make someone's day better. And Squidward, the same Squidward who spent the entire episode screaming at SpongeBob and calling the delivery a waste of time, sees SpongeBob sitting there crying. And something shifts in him. He picks up the pizza box, walks back to the customer's door, and when the customer opens it, Squidward slams the pizza right in his face and shuts the door. Then he turns to SpongeBob and tells him that the customer ate the whole thing in one bite. And SpongeBob smiles. He is happy again. And so is Squidward. That is not the reaction of someone who hates SpongeBob. That is the reaction of someone who cannot stand seeing him hurt. And the show gives us this same pattern again and again across multiple seasons. In Dying for Pie from season 2, it is Employee Brotherhood Day at the Krusty Krab, which means all employees have to exchange gifts they made by hand. SpongeBob gives Squidward a sweater made out of his own eyelashes. When Squidward makes a face at it, SpongeBob starts crying so hard that he gives Squidward a second sweater, this one made out of his tears. Squidward, who does not want to put any effort into the gift exchange, goes outside and buys a pie from some pirates. What he does not know is that the pie is actually a bomb. When Mr. Krabs accidentally breaks off a piece of the crust and it explodes, destroying the back wall of the Krusty Krab, Squidward realizes what he has done. He thinks SpongeBob ate the rest of the pie. Mr. Krabs tells him that the pie will explode in SpongeBob's stomach by sunset. And this is where we see who Squidward really is underneath all the complaining. He does not run. He does not hide. He does not say, "Well, that is too bad," and go home. He decides to spend SpongeBob's final hours making them the best hours of his life. SpongeBob has a list of the most fun things he likes to do, and Squidward agrees to do every single one. The list includes things like showing his best friend Squidward to everybody in town, and showing his best friend Squidward to everybody in town while wearing a salmon suit. These are humiliating, ridiculous activities that Squidward would normally refuse without a second thought. But he does them. All of them. Because he believes SpongeBob is going to die, and he wants his last day to be perfect. The final item on the list is watching the sunset together. And Squidward remembers that SpongeBob is supposed to explode at sunset. So as the sun goes down, Squidward starts sobbing. He builds a brick wall between them to shield himself from the blast. But that is not why he is crying. He is crying because he thinks he is about to lose SpongeBob, the person he claims to hate, the neighbor he wishes would disappear. When sunset comes and there is an explosion, Squidward breaks down completely. It turns out SpongeBob never ate the pie at all. He had saved it in his pocket so they could share it together. The whole day of thinking SpongeBob was going to die was for nothing. But in those hours, Squidward showed who he really is when it matters. Then there is Christmas Who from Season 2. SpongeBob has convinced all of Bikini Bottom that Santa Claus is real and that he is coming for Christmas. Everyone is excited. Everyone has their hopes up. Everyone except Squidward, who thinks the whole thing is stupid and says so loudly and repeatedly. When Christmas night comes and Santa does not show up, the entire town is disappointed. But nobody takes it harder than SpongeBob. His whole dream of bringing Christmas joy to Bikini Bottom has fallen apart. And Squidward makes it worse. He rubs it in. He mocks SpongeBob for believing in Santa. He laughs at the whole idea. But then, SpongeBob does something unexpected. Even though he is devastated, even though his heart is broken, he walks up to Squidward's door and gives him a gift. A handmade wooden clarinet, carved and customized just for him. SpongeBob made this gift for the person who just spent the evening making fun of him. And Squidward takes it inside and looks at it, and for the first time, he feels it. He feels what he has done. He sees the difference between who SpongeBob is and who he is, and it hits him hard. So Squidward does something he has never done before. He puts on a Santa costume, fills a bag with his own belongings, his television, his furniture, his personal possessions, and he goes door to door giving them away to every person in Bikini Bottom. He gives away everything he owns. Not because he suddenly loves Christmas. Not because he had a change of heart about Santa. He does it because SpongeBob was sad, and making SpongeBob happy was more important to Squidward than owning things. When SpongeBob sees Santa giving out presents, his face lights up. He believes again. And Squidward, standing there in a Santa suit with nothing left to his name, is satisfied. He made SpongeBob smile. That was enough. These moments are scattered throughout the entire series. In Fools in April, Squidward plays a cruel prank on SpongeBob that goes too far and makes him run away crying. Squidward spends the rest of the episode physically struggling with his own guilt, literally fighting with himself, until he finally tracks SpongeBob down and forces himself to apologize. In Can You Spare a Dime, SpongeBob takes Squidward into his home when Squidward becomes homeless after quitting the Krusty Krab. He feeds him, clothes him, and takes care of him for months, even as Squidward takes advantage of his kindness by treating him like a personal servant. SpongeBob does eventually get angry in that episode, but even his anger is directed at Mr. Krabs for not giving Squidward his job back, not at Squidward himself. And in SpongeBob You're Fired from Season 9, when SpongeBob is kidnapped by rival restaurant owners who all want him to cook for them, it is Squidward who rescues him. Squidward puts on a giant Krabby Patty costume, beats up the other restaurant managers, and drags SpongeBob back to the Krusty Krab. When asked why he did it, Squidward admits that even though he hates SpongeBob, he hates the smell of Mr. Krabs' burnt Krabby Patties even more. But we know the truth. Squidward saved SpongeBob because, underneath everything, he could not leave him there. So what does all of this mean for SpongeBob's happiness? It means his love for Squidward is not entirely one-sided. There is something real there, something buried deep underneath years of insults and slammed doors. But it also means SpongeBob is willing to endure an enormous amount of rejection and cruelty on the chance that the person hurting him might, once in a while, in rare and extreme circumstances, show that they care. SpongeBob does not love Squidward because Squidward is nice to him. Squidward is almost never nice to him. SpongeBob loves Squidward because SpongeBob loves people. That is it. That is the whole reason. And no amount of rejection, no amount of hatred, no amount of doors slammed in his face will change that. This is the pattern of SpongeBob's entire life. He gives love to people who do not give it back. He gives loyalty to a boss who sells his soul for pocket change. He gives friendship to a neighbor who tells him to go away every single day. And he does all of this happily, willingly, eagerly. He does not see himself as a victim. He does not feel sorry for himself. He does not sit in his pineapple at night wondering why the people in his life treat him the way they do. He just loves them and accepts whatever comes back, even if what comes back is nothing at all. And that is what makes SpongeBob's happiness so unsettling when you really think about it. Because a person who is happy no matter how they are treated is a person who has no boundaries. A person who forgives everything instantly is a person who can be hurt again and again without consequence. SpongeBob's happiness is not just a personality trait. It is a shield that protects everyone around him from ever having to face the consequences of how they treat him. Mr. Krabs never has to change because SpongeBob never complains. Squidward never has to be kind because SpongeBob never stops being kind first. The system works perfectly, as long as SpongeBob never breaks. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But here's the question that the show keeps dancing around without ever fully answering. What happens when SpongeBob does break? What happens when the happiness cracks, even for a moment? What happens when the smile disappears and we see what is actually underneath? Because it does happen. It happens more often than you would think. And when SpongeBob's joy falters, when the foundation shakes, what comes pouring out is not anger or resentment or bitterness. It is something far more raw than that. It is an ocean of tears so massive and so overwhelming that it literally floods the streets of Bikini Bottom. Section 5. A Day Without Tears. SpongeBob's Emotional Extremes. There is a common mistake people make when they talk about SpongeBob SquarePants. They say he is always happy. They describe him as a character who never stops smiling, who is permanently cheerful, who exists in some kind of unbreakable state of joy. And that is not true. It is not true at all. SpongeBob is not a character who only feels happiness. SpongeBob is a character who feels everything. All of it, all at once, turned up to the highest possible volume. He does not just experience emotions, he drowns in them. And while happiness might be his default, the thing he always comes back to, the thing that defines him at his core, it is far from the only thing going on inside that little yellow body. Because SpongeBob SquarePants also cries more than almost any other character in the history of animated television. And when he cries, he does not just shed a few tears. He produces enough water to flood an entire city at the bottom of the ocean. The episode that proves this more clearly than any other is A Day Without Tears from Season 7. The episode starts the way most SpongeBob episodes start. He wakes up excited. His foghorn alarm goes off, and he opens his curtains with a big smile. Good morning, day. Everything is normal. But then he stubs his toe walking across the room, and he immediately breaks down sobbing. Not a wince, not a quick ow and then moving on. Full, uncontrollable crying over a stubbed toe. Then, while getting dressed, he accidentally rips his favorite shirt with a hanger, and he cries again. Then, while eating breakfast, a sad song comes on the radio, and he cries again. 3 separate breakdowns before he even leaves the house, and the day has barely started. At the Krusty Krab, things do not get better. Mr. Krabs walks into the kitchen and startles SpongeBob, causing a Krabby Patty to fly off his spatula and land on the floor. SpongeBob picks it up, carries it to the trash can, and delivers a tearful goodbye to it. He says he did not know the patty well, but in the few short seconds between grill and floor, he came to love it. He is giving a funeral speech to a hamburger, and he is genuinely devastated. Squidward yells at him to stop, which only makes SpongeBob cry harder because now his coworker is upset with him. And then Squidward does something that gives us one of the most revealing pieces of information about SpongeBob in the entire series. He confronts SpongeBob and tells him that he has cried 43 times that day. 43 times. And it is not even 2 in the afternoon yet. SpongeBob does not believe it at first. He says he does not have that many tears in his brain. So Squidward pulls up a television and plays a video montage that he has apparently put together, showing clip after clip of SpongeBob crying throughout the years. The montage goes on and on. Thousands of instances. SpongeBob crying over big things and small things and things that are not even things at all. After watching himself break down over and over on screen, SpongeBob finally admits it. He says, "Wow, I guess I do cry a lot." This leads to the central bet of the episode. Squidward wagers that SpongeBob cannot go the rest of the day without crying. If SpongeBob cries even 1 tear before midnight, he has to wash Squidward's bike, clean out his rain gutters, and do all of his yard work for an entire year. If SpongeBob makes it to midnight without a single tear, Squidward has to come to a sleepover at SpongeBob's house. SpongeBob calls Patrick to ask if he thinks it is possible, and Patrick, with his mouthful of popcorn, says of course it is. So SpongeBob accepts the bet. What happens next is a battle between SpongeBob and his own emotions, and it is a battle that he has to fight every second. Squidward walks him home and immediately starts trying to make him cry. He points out a beautiful sunset, hoping the beauty of it will trigger tears. The Bikini Bottom Choir sails by singing, and SpongeBob's eyes start to water, but the sunset ends and he pulls himself together. Then Squidward plays a sad song on his clarinet, and SpongeBob fights against it, visibly straining to hold himself together. Then Squidward reads him a made-up sad bedtime story about a little lost fish, trying to break him down. And through all of it, SpongeBob holds on. He does not cry. He fights every single impulse in his body, and he makes it. When the clock strikes midnight, SpongeBob has won the bet, and in the very next second, everything he has been holding back comes out. He does not just cry, he erupts. Every tear he held in for those hours comes flooding out of him in a wave so massive that it literally floods Bikini Bottom. His tears fill the streets. They fill Patrick's house. They fill Mr. Krabs' office. An entire underwater city is submerged in the tears of one sponge who is not allowed to cry for a few hours. That is how much emotion was building up inside of him. That is the pressure that exists behind SpongeBob's smile on any given day. Now think about what this episode is actually telling us. SpongeBob cried 43 times before 2 in the afternoon. That is roughly once every 15 minutes from the time he woke up. And this is not presented as an unusual day. Squidward's montage shows that this has been going on for years. This is just what life looks like for SpongeBob. He goes through his day experiencing happiness and sadness in almost equal measure, swinging between joy and tears constantly, sometimes within the same minute. He cries when he stubs his toe. He cries when a Krabby Patty hits the floor. He cries when he hears a sad song. He cries when someone yells at him. He cries when the sunset is beautiful. He cries when a news story is even slightly emotional. And this is the thing that most people miss about SpongeBob's happiness. It is not that he does not feel pain. He feels pain constantly. It is not that he is numb to sadness. He is overwhelmed by sadness on a daily basis. His happiness does not exist because he avoids negative emotions. His happiness exists despite them. SpongeBob feels everything at full force, all the time, with no filter and no dimmer switch. When he is happy, he is the happiest creature alive. When he is sad, he produces enough tears to flood a city. He lives at the extremes of every emotion. And somehow, After every breakdown, after every flood of tears, he resets. He comes back to happy. He always comes back to happy. This pattern shows up in episode after episode across the entire series. In All That Glitters from Season 4, SpongeBob's spatula breaks while he is trying to flip a monster Krabby Patty. And he falls apart. He does not just get sad about losing a cooking tool. He mourns it like the death of a close friend. He cries for an extended period. He is devastated. And when he replaces it with a fancy new high-tech spatula that ends up betraying him, he breaks down again. The emotional highs and lows of this episode, all over a spatula, are extreme enough to fill a drama. In Season 4 alone, one analysis from fans found that SpongeBob cries in roughly 75% of the episodes. That is 30 out of 38 episodes where he breaks down at some point. He cries when Mrs. Puff loses her job. He cries when Sandy sings a sad song. He cries when he is not let inside the Krusty Krab. He cries when Gary bites him. He cries when he gets rid of his wig. He cries when Patrick lets being a king go to his head. He cries when he fails his driving test for the 58th time. He cries when he is freed from jail. He cries over board games and jellyfish nets and the thought of his friend leaving town. He cries at everything. And yet, if you asked anyone to describe SpongeBob SquarePants in one word, they would say happy. Not emotional, not sensitive, not unstable, happy. Because that is what people remember. They remember the smile. They remember the laugh. They remember the excitement and the energy and the joy. The crying gets treated as a gag, a quick moment of comedy before the plot moves on. But when you actually count the tears, when you actually add up every breakdown across hundreds of episodes, what you find is a character who is in a constant state of emotional overload. He is not choosing happiness over sadness. He is experiencing both at the same time, all the time, at maximum intensity. And the happiness just happens to be louder. This is what makes SpongeBob's emotional life so different from everyone else in Bikini Bottom. Squidward feels things deeply too, but he responds to pain by shutting down, by becoming bitter, by building walls. Patrick barely feels anything at all, moving through life in a comfortable haze of ignorance. Mr. Krabs only feels things when money is involved. Sandy is practical and level-headed. But SpongeBob has no walls. He has no filters. He has no defense system. Everything gets in. Every stubbed toe, every dropped patty, every mean word, every beautiful sunset, every sad song on the radio. It all hits him at full power. And instead of building armor to protect himself, he just lets it happen. He absorbs it. He cries it out. And then he gets up and smiles again. There is something amazing about that. And there is something deeply frightening about it too. Because a person who feels everything that intensely, a person who cries 43 times before lunch, and then floods an entire city when they finally let it all out, is not a person who is doing fine. That is a person who is held together by the thinnest possible thread. SpongeBob's happiness is real, but it is sitting on top of an ocean of other emotions that never fully go away. They just get pushed down, held back, swallowed up, until the next time they come bursting out in a wave of tears. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. And that raises a bigger question. If SpongeBob's happiness is not the absence of pain, but the thing that sits on top of the pain, then what happens when the pain gets too heavy? What happens when something comes along that is too big to cry about and move on from? What happens when SpongeBob faces something that his smile cannot fix and his tears cannot wash away? Because it does happen. There are moments in this show where SpongeBob's entire sense of who he is gets shaken to its core, where his confidence shatters, where the happy little fry cook disappears, and what is left behind is someone who does not know who he is anymore. And those moments, those rare cracks in the foundation, are the most revealing scenes in the entire series. Section 6. When happiness breaks. SpongeBob's identity crises. SpongeBob's happiness is strong. We have established that. It survives being underpaid. It survives having his soul sold. It survives constant rejection from his neighbor. It survives floods of his own tears. But it is not invincible. There are moments in this show, scattered across the seasons and one very important movie, where SpongeBob's happiness does not just crack, it shatters completely. And when it does, what we see underneath is not a person who is sad. It is a person who stops being able to function. A person who forgets how to talk, how to think, how to exist. SpongeBob without his happiness is not just unhappy SpongeBob. He is nobody. And that should terrify you. The first time we see this happen is in Season 1, in the episode Pickles. It starts like any other day at the Krusty Krab. SpongeBob is at the grill doing what he does best, flipping Krabby Patties with speed and precision and joy. Orders come in, and he fills them perfectly. 1 cryin' Johnny, up. 12 cryin' cows on the farm, up. He is a machine. He does not even have to think about it. His hands move on their own. First bun, then patty, followed by ketchup, mustard, pickles, onions, lettuce, cheese, tomatoes, and bun. In that order. Every time. Without fail. Then Bubble Bass walks in. Bubble Bass is a large, overweight fish who orders something ridiculously complicated. SpongeBob makes it perfectly and serves it. Bubble Bass takes a bite and says it is pretty good. But then he says 4 words that destroy SpongeBob's entire world. You forgot the pickles. He opens the burger and shows that there are no pickles on it. And SpongeBob freezes. He checks. He looks. The pickles are not there. And in that moment, something inside SpongeBob breaks. Not slowly, not gradually, instantly, like a light switch being flipped off. Because SpongeBob has never gotten an order wrong. Making Krabby Patties is not just his job. It is who he is. It is the thing he is best at in the entire world. It is the foundation of his identity, his confidence, his happiness, his everything. And if he got the pickles wrong, then maybe he does not know how to make a Krabby Patty at all. And if he does not know how to make a Krabby Patty, then who is he? The breakdown happens immediately. Mr. Krabs tells him to get back to work, but SpongeBob cannot do it. He stands at the grill and tries to make a new patty, and he cannot remember the order. He puts bun down, then ketchup, then mustard, then stops. No, that is not right. He starts again. Bun down, mustard, then ketchup, lettuce, then the pickles. No, he starts again. Mustard down, bun. Where does the patty go? He starts again. Bun down, shoe, mustard, pan, bun. He is putting shoes and pans in the burger. His brain has completely fallen apart. He tells Mr. Krabs he is so confused and cannot remember how to do anything. Mr. Krabs sends him home. And when Mr. Krabs visits SpongeBob's house later to check on him, what he finds is genuinely disturbing. The house is in total chaos. Eggs and toast are nailed to the walls. Furniture is tipped over. The music playing inside is running backwards. And SpongeBob is standing there wearing underwear on his head, speaking in sentences that come out in the wrong order. He says things like, Mr. Krabs, hello, do you how do? And, I anything can't do right since, because pickles. His words are scrambled. His brain is scrambled. Everything about him is scrambled. The one thing that held his identity together, his ability to cook, has been pulled out from under him. And without it, he literally cannot function as a person. Mr. Krabs tells SpongeBob that if he can remember how to make a Krabby Patty, his life will go back to normal. He says it is like riding a bike. You never forget. Then he looks over and sees that SpongeBob has put a bicycle in a boiling pot of water on the stove. He has forgotten how to ride a bike too. He has forgotten how to do everything. It takes days. Mr. Krabs sits on the floor with SpongeBob and lays out all the ingredients on a blanket and walks him through it step by step. And SpongeBob struggles. He tries and fails over and over again, listing ingredients in the wrong order, getting frustrated, getting angry. Until finally, in a burst of emotion, he accidentally lists the correct order while ranting about how he cannot do it. And just like that, the switch flips back on. He can make a Krabby Patty again. And with that, everything else comes back. His speech, his confidence, his happiness. He returns to the Krusty Krab and discovers that Bubble Bass was hiding the pickles under his tongue the entire time to avoid paying. SpongeBob was right all along. He never forgot the pickles. But here is what matters about this episode. It does not matter that SpongeBob was right. What matters is how quickly and completely he fell apart when he thought he was wrong. One accusation, one moment of doubt about his cooking ability, and SpongeBob did not just get upset, he lost the ability to speak, to think, to function in basic ways. His entire personality, his entire self, collapsed. Because SpongeBob's identity is built on a very small number of things: his job, his friends, his daily routines. And if you remove even one of those pillars, the whole structure comes crashing down. His happiness is not built on a wide, stable foundation. It is balanced on a needle. We see this same pattern in All That Glitters from Season 4. SpongeBob is cooking at the Krusty Krab when a customer orders a monster Krabby Patty, an enormous burger that requires extra effort to flip. SpongeBob tries to flip it, but his spatula snaps in half from the weight. And just like with the pickles, SpongeBob does not respond the way a normal person would. A normal person would be annoyed. A normal person would go buy a new spatula. SpongeBob mourns. He holds his broken spatula and cries for an extended period of time, openly weeping in the Krusty Krab kitchen like he has just lost a member of his family. Because to SpongeBob, that spatula was a member of his family. He has cooked with it every single day. It is part of who he is. He goes to the hospital with the spatula, hoping it can be fixed. It cannot. So SpongeBob buys a new, fancy, high-tech spatula called Le Spatula. This new spatula is everything SpongeBob's old one was not. It is shiny and expensive and modern. But it comes with a price. Le Spatula does not want to work at the Krusty Krab. It thinks the Krusty Krab is beneath it, and eventually, Le Spatula leaves SpongeBob for a fancier restaurant. SpongeBob is devastated all over again. He sold everything he owned to buy this spatula. He gave up his things because he thought this new tool would fill the hole left by his old one. And it rejected him. The episode ends with SpongeBob's original spatula being repaired and returned to him. Everything goes back to normal. But once again, the revealing part is not the ending. It is the middle. It is the breakdown. A spatula broke, and SpongeBob's entire emotional world collapsed. He cried like he lost a loved one. He made desperate financial decisions. He latched onto a replacement that ultimately abandoned him. All because of a cooking tool. That is how narrow the foundation of his happiness really is. Everything he has, everything he is, sits on top of a few very specific things. And when one of them breaks, even temporarily, SpongeBob breaks with it. But the biggest and most important breakdown in SpongeBob's history does not happen in a regular episode. It happens in the SpongeBob SquarePants movie from 2004, and it is the only time in the entire franchise where SpongeBob's happiness is damaged by something that cannot be fixed with a simple reset. The movie opens with SpongeBob dreaming. In his dream, there is a crisis at the Krusty Krab. A customer's Krabby Patty is missing cheese. Mr. Krabs is crying, and SpongeBob arrives in a fancy car, walks in like a hero, and calmly puts the cheese on the patty. The crowd cheers. He is the manager. He is important. He matters. Then his alarm goes off and he wakes up. But the excitement is real, because today is the grand opening of the Krusty Krab 2, and SpongeBob is certain that Mr. Krabs is going to name him the new manager. He has every reason to believe this. He has won 374 consecutive Employee of the Month awards. He is the best fry cook in Bikini Bottom. He has given his entire life to this restaurant. There is nobody more qualified, nobody more dedicated, nobody who cares more about the Krusty Krab than SpongeBob SquarePants. So he gets dressed, tells Patrick the good news, and heads to the ceremony with total confidence. And Mr. Krabs does not pick him. He picks Squidward. Squidward, who hates the Krusty Krab. Squidward, who does the bare minimum every single day. Squidward, who burns food and insults customers and watches the clock waiting for his shift to end. Mr. Krabs picks Squidward over SpongeBob and explains why with 2 words that hit SpongeBob harder than anything anyone has ever said to him in the entire series. He calls SpongeBob just a kid. He says SpongeBob is too immature to handle the responsibility. And SpongeBob's happiness does not just crack this time, it dies. His cheerful expression drops, and for the first time in the franchise, SpongeBob says a version of his catchphrase that sounds completely wrong. He says, "I'm ready." Depression. He walks to Goofy Goober's ice cream party boat and sits at the counter and cries. Not the kind of crying he does when he stubs his toe. Not the kind of crying he does when a Krabby Patty falls on the floor. Deep, real, painful crying. The kind that comes from somewhere inside you that you did not even know existed. Patrick shows up and congratulates SpongeBob on his promotion, not knowing what happened. And SpongeBob starts sobbing all over again. So they do the only thing they know how to do. They eat ice cream. Bowl after bowl after bowl. The scene is played like 2 adults drowning their sorrows at a bar, except instead of alcohol, it is ice cream sundaes. They eat so much that they end up on stage with the Goofy Goober mascot, barely conscious, singing nonsense into a microphone. The next morning, SpongeBob wakes up on the floor of the restaurant looking like a wreck. His clothes are loose, his eyes are bloodshot, he has stubble on his face. He looks hungover. And when he remembers what happened the day before, his face drops into that same hollow expression. This is the one time in the franchise where SpongeBob's pain does not resolve itself in 11 minutes. It carries through the entire movie. It follows him on his journey to Shell City. It follows him across the ocean. And at the lowest point of the film, when he and Patrick are stranded in a deadly trench full of monsters, SpongeBob does something he has never done before. He gives up. He turns around and starts walking home. Patrick asks about Mr. Krabs, and SpongeBob says, "What about us?" He says they will never survive. He says they are just kids. He says they blow bubbles and eat ice cream and worship a dancing peanut. He pulls down Patrick's pants to reveal his Goofy Goober underwear and says this is proof that they do not belong out here. He accepts, fully and completely, that Mr. Krabs was right, that he is just a kid, that he is not enough. SpongeBob does eventually find his confidence again. He saves Bikini Bottom. He gets the crown. He plays a rock version of the Goofy Goober song and defeats Plankton's mind control. And at the very end, Mr. Krabs names him Manager of the Krusty Krab 2. The happy ending arrives. But the damage that was done in this movie is different from every other breakdown in the series. Because the pickles were a misunderstanding. The spatula was repaired. Those crises had simple solutions. But Mr. Krabs calling SpongeBob just a kid was not a mistake. It was an opinion. It was a judgment about who SpongeBob is as a person. And SpongeBob believed it. For the first time, he looked at himself through someone else's eyes and did not like what he saw. That is the terrifying truth about SpongeBob's happiness. It is enormous and powerful and seems indestructible, but it is completely dependent on a handful of very specific things: his job, his spatula, his sense of competence, his belief that the people he loves value him. Remove any one of those things, and SpongeBob does not get a little sad. He falls apart completely. His happiness is not a deep well with an endless supply. It is a balloon, huge and bright and beautiful, but one sharp point away from popping. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. And that leads us to the single worst thing that has ever happened to SpongeBob's sense of self. Worse than the pickles. Worse than losing the manager position. Because there is one episode where his happiness does not just break because of a job, or a spatula, or a promotion. It breaks because every single person in his life, every friend, every neighbor, every companion, looks him in the eye and tells him to go away. And what SpongeBob does next, and what happens to his mind when he does it, is the most unsettling thing this show has ever produced. Section 7. Who-Bob What-Pants. When everyone tells you to leave. There is one episode of SpongeBob SquarePants that asks a question no other episode has ever dared to ask. Not what happens when SpongeBob loses his job. Not what happens when SpongeBob loses his confidence. Not what happens when one person rejects him. But what happens when every single person in SpongeBob's life, every friend, every companion, every creature he cares about, looks him in the eye on the same day and tells him they do not want him around anymore. The episode is called Whatever Happened to SpongeBob, and it originally aired under the title Who-Bob What-Pants. And it is, quietly and without most people realizing it, one of the most important episodes in the entire series, because it answers a question that has been building since the very first episode. Can SpongeBob's happiness survive losing everything at once? The episode begins simply enough. SpongeBob wakes up and wants to spend time with the people he loves. That is all. He is not being annoying on purpose. He is not trying to cause trouble. He just wants to be around his friends. So he starts his day the way he always does, by going out into the world with a smile and looking for someone to share it with. He starts with Gary, his own pet, the snail who lives in his house and sleeps at the foot of his bed. SpongeBob accidentally breaks Gary's shell while trying to play with him. And Gary does not just get upset, he hisses at SpongeBob. He is the first one to call SpongeBob Idiot Boy, his own pet, the creature who knows him better than almost anyone, the one who is always there when he comes home from work. Gary looks at SpongeBob and rejects him. And SpongeBob is hurt, but he moves on. He figures he will go see someone else. He goes to Patrick, his best friend, the person he has known since they were babies, the person who lives under a rock right next to his house, the person who he has shared every adventure, every laugh, every ice cream sundae with for years. SpongeBob tries to spend time with Patrick, but accidentally causes some kind of problem. And Patrick, his best friend in the entire world, also calls him Idiot Boy and tells him to go away. 2 down. He goes to Sandy, the squirrel from Texas who lives in an air dome. The friend who taught him karate, who goes on adventures with him, who has always been one of the kindest and most patient people in his life. And Sandy also tells him to go away. She calls him Idiot Boy too. 3 down. He goes to Squidward. Now, Squidward telling SpongeBob to go away is nothing new. That happens in almost every episode. But in this episode, it lands differently, because Squidward is not the first person to reject SpongeBob today. He is the 4th. By the time SpongeBob gets to Squidward's door, he has already been rejected by his pet, his best friend, and one of his closest companions. So when Squidward tells him to leave, it is not just another door slamming. It is the last door. There is nobody left. And this is where the episode crosses into territory that the show has never explored before. SpongeBob goes home. He sits down, and he makes a decision that goes against everything we know about his character. He decides to leave. Not just leave his house, not just take a walk to clear his head. He decides to leave Bikini Bottom forever, the place where he has lived his entire life. The place where all his memories are, the place where the Krusty Krab is, the place where his pineapple sits between Squidward's house and Patrick's rock. He is going to walk away from all of it, because the people in it told him they did not want him there. Before he leaves, he does something that shows exactly how much he loves the people who just hurt him. He gives Gary a 1-year supply of food. He does not leave his pet to starve. He does not storm out in anger. Even in the moment of his deepest rejection, his first thought is making sure the creature who just hissed at him will be taken care of after he is gone. He writes a note for his friends. Not an angry note, not a bitter note, just a goodbye. And then he walks out of Bikini Bottom with nothing but the clothes on his back and a bottle of bubbles in his pocket. Think about what this means for SpongeBob's character. This is a person who forgave Mr. Krabs for selling his soul for 62 cents. This is a person who smiles when Squidward slams the door in his face every morning. This is a person whose happiness has survived exploitation, abuse, physical destruction, and betrayal. And one day of being called Idiot Boy by the people he loves is what finally makes him leave. Not because one person said it, because everyone said it, on the same day, in the same way. And for the first time in his life, SpongeBob could not find a single person in Bikini Bottom who wanted him around. On his way out of town, SpongeBob falls off a cliff and hits his head. When he wakes up, his memory is gone, completely gone. He does not know his own name. He does not know where he came from. He does not know who his friends are, or where he lives, or what he does for a living. He looks down at himself and does not recognize his own body. He sees a name tag or some piece of identification and misreads it, deciding that his name must be Cheesehead Brown Pants. That is who he is now. Not SpongeBob SquarePants, not the fry cook at the Krusty Krab, not the neighbor who loves Squidward, not Patrick's best friend. Nobody. He is nobody from nowhere, with no past and no connections and no identity at all. And here is the part that is both beautiful and deeply unsettling. Even without his memory, even without knowing who he is or where he came from, SpongeBob is still happy. He wanders into a city called New Kelp City, lost and confused, and the first thing he does is reach into his pocket and find his bottle of bubbles. He does not know why he has them. He does not remember learning to blow bubbles, but he does it anyway, because somewhere deep inside him, deeper than memory, deeper than identity, deeper than everything that makes a person who they are, the instinct to find joy is still there. It survived the erasure of his entire life. Now, New Kelp City is not a friendly place. It is run by a tough street gang called the Bubble Poppin' Boys, and they have made bubble blowing illegal. When SpongeBob starts blowing bubbles in the middle of town, the gang comes after him. But SpongeBob, even without his memory, even without knowing he is the greatest bubble blower in Bikini Bottom, uses his skills to trap the entire gang inside a giant bubble that floats them right out of the city. The citizens of New Kelp City are so grateful that they declare SpongeBob, or Cheesehead Brown Pants as they know him, their new mayor. He goes from being rejected by everyone in his old life to being celebrated by everyone in his new one. He has power. He has fame. He has people who actually want him around. Meanwhile, back in Bikini Bottom, the people who told SpongeBob to leave are starting to realize what they have done. Patrick and Sandy find SpongeBob's goodbye note and break down crying. They feel terrible. The guilt of what they said hits them hard, and they want to find SpongeBob and bring him home. Gary, who was the first to reject him, also shows regret. Mr. Krabs panics, because without SpongeBob, the Krusty Krab cannot function. He shoves out the customers and closes the restaurant. Squidward is the only one who does not care. He is happy SpongeBob is gone. He has been waiting for this day for years. Mr. Krabs, Patrick, and Sandy team up to find SpongeBob. Sandy builds a device to track him down, but Squidward smashes it. So Mr. Krabs threatens Squidward's job and forces him to go looking for SpongeBob himself. They eventually find him in New Kelp City, where he is living as Mayor Cheesehead Brown Pants. But when they arrive and call him SpongeBob, he does not recognize them. He has no idea who these people are. His best friend, his boss, his neighbor, the squirrel from Texas. They are strangers to him. Every shared memory, every adventure, every laugh, every moment they spent together over years and years of friendship means nothing because SpongeBob's brain erased it all when he fell off that cliff. And some part of you has to wonder if his brain erased it on purpose. If some part of SpongeBob decided, after everyone told him to go away, that it would be easier to just forget. The resolution comes when SpongeBob accidentally gets hit on the head again and his memory returns. He remembers everything. He remembers Bikini Bottom. He remembers his friends. He remembers the Krusty Krab and Gary and his pineapple, and he wants to go home. But before he can leave New Kelp City, a news report comes on showing that the laws Mayor Cheesehead Brownpants passed have caused chaos. SpongeBob feels responsible, but ultimately his friends help sort things out, and he returns to Bikini Bottom, where everyone is happy to have him back. Happy ending. Everything returns to normal. SpongeBob is home. His friends learned their lesson. The status quo is restored. But let us stay with the middle of this episode for a moment. Let us sit with what actually happened before the happy ending cleaned everything up. Because what happened in this episode is that SpongeBob SquarePants, the happiest character in fiction, was rejected by every person he loved, made the decision to abandon his entire life, lost his memory, built a completely new identity from scratch, became the leader of a city full of strangers, and was doing fine. He was happy. He was successful. He was functioning perfectly well without any of the things that were supposed to define him. Without the Krusty Krab, without Patrick, without Squidward, without Gary, without Bikini Bottom, without his name. And that tells us something profound and honestly a little frightening about how SpongeBob's happiness works. It is not connected to his life. It is not connected to his relationships. It is not connected to his job or his home or his friends. It exists independently of all of those things. You can strip away every single element of SpongeBob's identity. You can erase his memory. You can drop him in a strange city where he knows nobody and has nothing, and his happiness will still be there. It is not a response to his circumstances. It is built into him at a level so deep that even total amnesia cannot reach it. That is not normal. That is not how emotions work for any other character on this show, or really any show ever made. Patrick's happiness comes from ignorance. Squidward's misery comes from awareness. Sandy's contentment comes from accomplishment. Mr. Krabs' joy comes from money. Every other character's emotional state is connected to something in their life. Take away the thing, and the emotion changes. But SpongeBob's happiness is not connected to anything. It just is. It exists the way gravity exists. It does not need a reason. It does not need a source. It is simply there, running underneath everything else. Whether SpongeBob is the beloved fry cook of Bikini Bottom, or Cheesehead Brownpants, the confused stranger from nowhere. And if SpongeBob's happiness does not come from his life, if it does not come from his friends or his job or his home, if it can survive the complete destruction of his identity, then what does that say about the happiness itself? Is it even happiness anymore? Or is it something else entirely? Something wired into his biology, something mechanical, something that runs whether he wants it to or not? Because that is the real question at the heart of this episode, and really at the heart of the entire show. SpongeBob is not happy because his life is good. His life is full of exploitation and rejection and pain. SpongeBob is not happy because he chooses to be. You cannot choose to be happy when you do not even remember your own name. SpongeBob is happy because he cannot be anything else. His happiness is not a choice. It is a condition. And the person who is happy no matter what, who is happy when they are loved, and happy when they are abandoned, and happy when they remember who they are, and happy when they forget, is not an inspiring figure. They are something much stranger than that. Something that starts to look less like a character and more like a phenomenon. Something that, when you really stop and think about it, should not exist. Before we move on, If you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But SpongeBob does exist, and his body, the strange yellow body that contains all of this impossible happiness, has been through things that would destroy any other character on television. Not emotionally, physically, because Bikini Bottom does not just break SpongeBob's heart, it breaks his body, over and over and over again. And what his body does in response, the way it heals, the way it regenerates, the way it always comes back no matter what happens to it, might be the most unsettling thing about him yet. Section 8. The physical torture of being SpongeBob. We have spent a lot of time talking about what happens to SpongeBob's mind. The rejection, the betrayal, the identity crises, the moments when his happiness cracks and we see something fragile underneath. But there is another side to SpongeBob's existence that we have not fully explored yet. A side that is, in some ways, even harder to think about than the emotional stuff. And that is what happens to his body. Because SpongeBob SquarePants does not just get his feelings hurt over the course of this show. He gets destroyed. Physically. Repeatedly. In ways that would kill any other character on any other show, sometimes multiple times in a single episode. His body gets shattered, ripped apart, dehydrated, crushed, burned, torn in half, and reduced to pieces on a regular basis. And every single time, without exception, he comes back. His body puts itself together again. His pieces find each other. His form returns to normal. And he goes right back to smiling. And nobody in Bikini Bottom, not his friends, not his enemies, not even SpongeBob himself, seems to think this is unusual. The very first time we see SpongeBob's body fail him is in one of the earliest episodes of the entire series. In Tea at the Tree Dome, SpongeBob visits Sandy's underwater dome for the first time. Sandy lives in an air-filled environment because she is a land squirrel who needs to breathe air. SpongeBob, being a sea creature, needs water to survive, but he does not want to admit this because he wants to impress his new friend. So he stays inside the dome as the water drains away, pretending everything is fine, while his body slowly shrivels up. His skin dries out, his shape collapses, his body curls and crumbles like a piece of paper left in the sun. Patrick comes in to help, and the same thing happens to him. By the time Sandy returns, both of them are dried out on the floor like dead leaves. Sandy saves them with water-filled helmets. SpongeBob bounces back to normal. And nobody ever really talks about how close he came to dying that day. But dehydration is nothing compared to what happens later. In the Season 3 episode, I Had an Accident, SpongeBob goes sandboarding at Sand Mountain with Sandy and Patrick. He is showing off, doing tricks, having a great time. And then he loses control of his board and crashes into the ground. Not a normal crash. His entire bottom shatters into pieces on impact, like glass hitting a floor. Sandy's reaction says it all. Patrick's reaction is even more revealing. He says to do it again because he was not looking. SpongeBob is rushed to the hospital, where the doctor tells him it took 20 hours to put his bottom back together. 20 hours. They ran out of staples and had to use a glue stick. The doctor warns SpongeBob that one more injury like that and he could end up in something called the iron butt, which is a giant machine on wheels that replaces your entire backside. There is another patient already using one. SpongeBob is so terrified by this that he decides never to go outside again. He sits on the floor of his house with 3 new friends. A penny he calls Penny, a potato chip he calls Chip, and a wadded up napkin he calls Used Napkin. He refuses to leave. He tells Sandy and Patrick that his people are meant to be sitting still, not walking around in the world getting hurt. He even rigs up a really long spatula so he can flip Krabby Patties from inside his house without going to work. Eventually, Sandy and Patrick try to lure him out by staging a fake gorilla attack. But a real gorilla actually shows up, stuffs Sandy and Patrick into a bag, and starts beating them up. SpongeBob finally leaves his house to save them, and the gorilla rips SpongeBob in half. clean in two. Two separate pieces of SpongeBob lying on the ground. And yet somehow, by the end of the episode, he is fine, whole again, talking and smiling like nothing happened. The show just moves on. Then there is The Bully from Season 3, where a new student named Flats the Flounder joins SpongeBob's boating school class. Flats tells SpongeBob he is going to kick his butt. Not as a joke, he means it. SpongeBob panics. He tries to get help from Patrick, from Mrs. Puff, from Flats' own father. Nobody can save him. Eventually, Flats corners SpongeBob in his own house and starts punching him. SpongeBob puts on a blindfold and braces for the worst. But when Flats hits him, something strange happens. SpongeBob does not feel it. His spongy body absorbs the punch completely. He takes off the blindfold and realizes that his body just soaks up the blows like he is made of, well, sponge. He even says it out loud to Gary. He is absorbing the hits like he is made of some kind of spongy material. So what does SpongeBob do? He goes about his normal life. He eats breakfast. He goes to work. He flips patties. He plays cards with Gary. He goes to sleep. And Flats keeps punching him the entire time, through all of it, for an entire week straight. Flats punches SpongeBob non-stop, through every activity, through every meal, through every trip to the Krusty Krab, until Flats finally collapses from exhaustion. SpongeBob stood there and absorbed a week of continuous punching without a scratch on him. His body just took it, all of it, like it was nothing. But the most disturbing display of what SpongeBob's body can endure happens in Krabby Land. In this episode, Mr. Krabs builds a cheap and dangerous playground out of junk to attract children and their parents' money during summer break. He promises the kids that a character called Krabby the Clown will appear, and tells SpongeBob to keep the children entertained while he counts the profits. SpongeBob tries to entertain them by blowing bubbles, but the kids do not care about bubbles. Then SpongeBob accidentally gets bubble soap in his eyes. He screams in pain, and the children laugh. They love it. SpongeBob realizes, with a kind of sad understanding, that the children enjoy watching him get hurt. So SpongeBob starts hurting himself on purpose. He pours more bubble soap into his eyes. He rips his own face off with tape. A truck runs over his tongue 3 times. He hires 2 thugs to torture him. They hit him on the head with a hammer. They smash him with a wrecking ball. They hold him down and force feed him lima beans. They use him as a tennis ball, smacking him back and forth between them. And then they play tug of war with his body, pulling from both sides until he rips in half. The children cheer. They use his detached arms and legs as boomerangs, throwing them around outside while SpongeBob crawls into Mr. Krabs' office, missing all 4 limbs, to tell his boss he cannot keep going. And what does Mr. Krabs say? He does not ask if SpongeBob is okay. He does not rush him to the hospital. He sees SpongeBob's limbs flying past the window, and his first thought is that the children might break his glass. He tells SpongeBob he is being selfish and to get back out there and stall. SpongeBob's arms and legs are literally being thrown around like toys by a group of children, and his boss calls him selfish for wanting to stop. These are not rare events. SpongeBob's body gets destroyed across the entire run of the show with a kind of regularity that becomes deeply strange when you actually stop and count. He has been dehydrated to a crisp. He has been shattered into pieces. He has been ripped in half more than once. He has had his skin peeled off. He has been reduced to a pile of dust in Dunces and Dragons and came right back. He has been flattened, burned, stretched, twisted, and broken in ways that should not be possible for any living thing. His body has been shown on X-rays with bones, even though sponges are supposed to be boneless. He can regenerate missing parts the way real sea sponges do. He can split into 2 separate functioning SpongeBobs. In the episode Pressure, he reproduces by budding, pulling smaller copies of himself right off his own body. And this is the part that nobody talks about. SpongeBob's body is not normal. It is not just flexible or tough or rubbery. It is something else entirely. It is a body that does not follow the rules that other bodies follow. It breaks and comes back. It gets destroyed and reforms. It gets torn apart and puts itself together. It absorbs a week of punches without a bruise. It survives dehydration, dismemberment, and devastation that would end any other creature permanently. And SpongeBob never questions this. He never sits down and wonders why his body can do what it does. He never looks at his regenerating limbs and asks what he is. He just accepts it the same way he accepts everything else in his life, with a smile, with happiness, without question. But think about what this means when you combine it with everything else we know about SpongeBob. His happiness is not connected to his circumstances. We established that in the last section. He can lose his memory, lose his friends, lose his home, lose his name, and still be happy. And now we see that his body works the same way. It is not connected to damage. He can lose his arms, lose his legs, lose his shape, lose his physical form entirely, and still come back. His happiness cannot be destroyed by emotional pain. His body cannot be destroyed by physical pain. There is nothing in SpongeBob's world, inside or outside of him, that can permanently change his condition. He is not just a happy character. He is a character that cannot be stopped, cannot be broken, cannot be ended. His body regenerates like his emotions regenerate. His physical form resets to default, just like his mood resets to default. No matter what Bikini Bottom does to him, no matter how much it tears him apart both inside and out, he always comes back exactly the same. Same shape, same smile, same SpongeBob. And when you look at it that way, SpongeBob starts to look less like a cartoon character and more like something that exists outside the normal rules of life. Something that happiness and physical destruction cannot touch. Something that just keeps going, keeps smiling, keeps existing, no matter what the universe throws at it. Not because he is strong, not because he is brave, but because whatever SpongeBob is made of, at the deepest level, simply does not allow him to be anything other than what he is. Which raises a question that the show has been quietly asking from the very beginning, even if most of us never noticed it. If SpongeBob cannot be changed by pain, cannot be changed by loss, cannot be changed by physical destruction, and cannot be changed by emotional devastation, is he even the same kind of creature as everyone else in Bikini Bottom? Or is he something different? Something that looks like a regular sponge who lives in a pineapple and flips burgers, but underneath all of that is something far stranger, far older, and far more unsettling than anyone around him realizes. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Because there is another character in Bikini Bottom who has been watching SpongeBob this entire time. A character who lives right next door and sees everything SpongeBob does every day up close. A character who represents the exact opposite of everything SpongeBob is. And by looking at that character, by holding him up like a mirror next to SpongeBob, we can finally start to understand what makes SpongeBob's happiness so deeply, fundamentally terrifying. Section 9. The Squidward Mirror. What awareness does to a person. If you want to understand what makes SpongeBob's happiness so strange, so impossible, so quietly terrifying, you do not need to look at SpongeBob at all. You need to look at the person standing right next to him. The person who sees everything SpongeBob sees, lives in the same town, works at the same restaurant, deals with the same boss, and exists in the same world, but who turned out completely, totally, fundamentally different. You need to look at Squidward tentacles, because Squidward is what happens when you take SpongeBob's life and give it to someone who actually notices what is going on. Think about what Squidward's life looks like on paper. He works as a cashier at the Krusty Krab, a fast food restaurant run by the cheapest boss in the ocean. He has worked there for years, not because he loves it, not because he finds meaning in it, but because his real dreams never worked out and the Krusty Krab is all he has left. In the episode The Original Fry Cook, It is revealed that Squidward told himself he would stay at the Krusty Krab only until his clarinet career took off. It never did. So he stayed, year after year after year, standing behind a cash register, taking orders from people he does not respect, working alongside a coworker who drives him crazy, and reporting to a boss who pays him almost nothing and treats him like he is disposable. Does that sound familiar? It should, because that is also SpongeBob's life. SpongeBob works at the same restaurant, for the same boss, getting paid the same terrible wages, dealing with the same customers. The only difference is that SpongeBob loves every second of it, and Squidward is miserable. And Squidward's misery is not a small thing. It is not a bad mood or a rough patch. It is his entire existence. In the episode One Crab's Trash, there is a scene where Squidward is walking through a graveyard, bringing flowers to a tombstone. The camera shows what is written on the stone. It says, "Here lies Squidward's hopes and dreams." He is visiting the grave of his own future. The life he wanted to live is dead, and he knows it, and he goes to pay his respects to it like it was a person he lost. In one of his most famous lines from the episode My Pretty Seahorse, Squidward describes his life in the most plain and honest way any character on the show ever has. He says to SpongeBob that he orders the food, SpongeBob cooks the food, the customer gets the food. They do that for 40 years, and then they die. That is it. That is the whole thing. No dreams, no aspirations, no hope for something better. Just decades of the same routine followed by death. And he says it like he has made peace with it, like he accepted it a long time ago and is just waiting for it to be over. Now compare this to SpongeBob, who does the exact same job and treats every single day like it is the greatest gift he has ever received. SpongeBob wakes up thrilled to flip burgers. Squidward wakes up dreading another day behind the register. They are standing 3 feet apart in the same building, breathing the same air, serving the same customers, and one of them is the happiest creature alive, while the other is slowly dying inside. Same world, same job, same boss. Completely opposite experiences of being alive. So what is the difference? What does Squidward have that SpongeBob does not? Or what does SpongeBob lack that Squidward possesses? The answer is simple, and it is the key to understanding everything about both of them. Squidward is aware. He sees the world clearly. He knows that Mr. Krabs is cheap and does not care about his employees. He knows that his job is meaningless and leads nowhere. He knows that his clarinet playing is not as good as he pretends it is. He knows that his paintings, most of which are pictures of himself, are not the masterpieces he tells himself they are. He knows that his life did not turn out the way he planned. He wanted to be a famous musician. He wanted to be a celebrated artist. He wanted to be rich, to be admired, to be important. Instead, he is a cashier in a greasy restaurant with a neighbor who will not leave him alone and a boss who would sell his soul for loose change. And Squidward knows all of this. Every single day, he wakes up knowing exactly where he is and exactly how far it is from where he wanted to be. SpongeBob does not know any of this. Or if he does, it does not register. SpongeBob does not see Mr. Krabs as cheap. He sees him as a great boss. SpongeBob does not see his job as a dead end. He sees it as the greatest honor of his life. SpongeBob does not see Bikini Bottom as a place that has chewed him up and spit him out over and over again. He sees it as home, the most wonderful place in the ocean. His happiness exists because he does not process the reality of his situation the way Squidward does. He looks at the same picture and sees something completely different. And this is what makes their relationship so fascinating and so sad at the same time. Squidward has dreams, real, specific, painful dreams. He wants to play clarinet for audiences who love him. In the episode Sleepy Time, his dream literally shows him performing for a king. In Band Geeks, when Squidward's band actually succeeds at the Bubble Bowl, and Squidward finally gets to conduct a performance that the audience loves, it is treated as one of the greatest moments in the entire series. Because it is the one time Squidward gets what he has always wanted. recognition, success, proof that he is not a failure. And it happens because SpongeBob and the rest of Bikini Bottom came together to help him. The person who annoys Squidward the most is the one who helped give him his greatest triumph. But here is the cruel part. That moment does not last. By the next episode, Squidward is back at the cash register, back to being ignored, back to playing clarinet badly in his house while SpongeBob and Patrick make noise outside. The happiness he felt at the Bubble Bowl does not carry over. It does not change his life. It was a single moment in a sea of disappointment, and Squidward knows that too. SpongeBob, on the other hand, does not need a moment like that. He does not need a crowd cheering for him. He does not need recognition or success or proof that he matters. He just needs a spatula and a grill and a morning alarm clock, and he is the happiest person in the world. His happiness costs nothing and requires nothing. Squidward's happiness requires everything and arrives almost never. Now think about what happened when Squidward actually tried to escape. In the Season 2 episode, Squidville, SpongeBob and Patrick accidentally destroy Squidward's house with reef blowers. Squidward has had enough. He packs up and moves to a gated community called Tentacle Acres, where every resident looks like him, acts like him, lives in a house shaped like his house, and shares his interests. No SpongeBob, no Patrick, no annoying neighbors, no noise, just peace and quiet and clarinet music and canned bread and bike riding and everything Squidward has ever said he wanted. And for about a day, Squidward is happy. He bikes around, he goes grocery shopping, he visits the Interpretive Dance Academy. He does all the things he loves without anyone bothering him. It is paradise, exactly the life he said he wanted. And then something happens. Something that Squidward did not expect and that the show never quite explains, but that tells you everything about who he really is. Squidward gets bored. Not just a little bored. Deeply, painfully, existentially bored. He sits on a park bench in the middle of his perfect life and realizes that it is empty. That having everything he said he wanted feels like having nothing at all. He hears a reef blower in the distance, and for a split second, he thinks it is SpongeBob. And something in him lights up. Some part of him, a part he would never admit exists, misses the chaos, misses the noise, misses the sponge. Squidward ends up going wild with the reef blower, terrorizing his new neighbors, getting chased out of Tentacle Acres, and going right back to Conch Street. Right back to the house between SpongeBob's pineapple and Patrick's rock. Right back to the life he says he hates. Because the terrible truth that Squidward discovered in Tentacle Acres is that his misery is not caused by SpongeBob. SpongeBob makes it worse, sure. But the misery was already there. It lives inside Squidward, in the gap between the life he has and the life he wanted. And no amount of peace and quiet can make that gap go away. This is the exact same thing we see in SB129, where Squidward gets trapped in a time machine and ends up in a void of pure nothingness. No SpongeBob, no Patrick, no Krusty Krab, no Bikini Bottom. Just Squidward, alone, in complete silence. Forever. The thing he has said he wants more than anything else in the world. And after a few moments of enjoying it, he breaks down completely. He screams that he wants to go home. He says he even misses SpongeBob. The character he claims to hate more than anyone else in the ocean is the one he cries out for when he is truly, completely alone. So here's what the Squidward mirror shows us. Squidward is aware of his life, and that awareness makes him miserable. SpongeBob is unaware of his life, and that unawareness makes him happy. Squidward has dreams that never come true, and the distance between his dreams and his reality is the source of all his pain. SpongeBob has no distance between his dreams and his reality, because his dream is to flip burgers, and he already does that. Squidward knows he is stuck. SpongeBob does not know he is stuck, because he does not think of it as being stuck at all. And the most important thing the mirror shows us is this. Squidward cannot exist without SpongeBob, and SpongeBob cannot be affected by Squidward. The relationship only flows one way. SpongeBob gives Squidward chaos and annoyance, yes, but he also gives him the only genuine moments of connection and feeling that Squidward experiences. Pizza delivery, dying for pie, Christmas who? Band geeks. Every time Squidward feels something real, something warm, something that breaks through his wall of misery and cynicism, SpongeBob is at the center of it. But Squidward's misery never touches SpongeBob. Not once. Not in any episode. SpongeBob can be hurt by Squidward's rejection in the moment. But by the next morning, he is back at Squidward's door with the same smile, the same wave, the same unshakable love. Squidward is what SpongeBob would be if SpongeBob could see his own life clearly. If SpongeBob woke up one morning and realized that his boss sold his soul for 62 cents, that his best friend is not very bright, that his neighbor hates him, that his salary is a nickel a year, that his body gets destroyed on a regular basis, and that his happiness has never once been rewarded with a better life, he would become Squidward. He would become bitter and tired and angry and hopeless. He would sit at the cash register and count the years until it was over. But SpongeBob cannot see these things, or will not, or is built in a way that makes seeing them impossible. And that is what makes him terrifying when you hold him up next to Squidward. Because Squidward's misery makes sense. You look at Squidward's life and you understand why he is unhappy. His reaction to his circumstances is normal. It is human. It is what anyone would feel if they were stuck in a dead-end job with no way out and a neighbor who would not stop knocking on their door. SpongeBob's happiness does not make sense. Not when you actually look at what his life contains. Not when you see the exploitation and the rejection and the physical destruction and the emotional devastation. His reaction to his circumstances is not normal. It is not something anyone would feel. It is something else entirely. Something that looks like joy, but operates more like a machine. Something that runs on its own fuel, generates its own power, and never, ever stops. Squidward is the proof. He is the control group. He shows us what a normal response to Bikini Bottom looks like. And by showing us what normal looks like, he makes SpongeBob's abnormality impossible to ignore. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But we have been looking at SpongeBob through the eyes of his friends, and his neighbor, and his boss, and himself. We have not yet looked at him through the eyes of the universe itself. Because Bikini Bottom is not just a town full of difficult people. It is a place where truly strange and frightening things happen. Things that go beyond bad bosses and mean neighbors. Things that touch on something much darker, much older, and much harder to explain. And the way SpongeBob responds to those things, the way his happiness holds up against forces that should shatter any living creature's sense of safety, might be the final piece of this puzzle. Section 10. The universe that should have broken him. Everything we have talked about so far has been caused by people. Mr. Krabs exploiting him, Squidward rejecting him, Patrick failing him, the children of Bikini Bottom using his body as a toy. All of SpongeBob's suffering up to this point has come from living creatures making choices that hurt him. But there is another category of experience in SpongeBob's life that has nothing to do with people at all. There are moments in this show where the universe itself seems to turn against him. Moments where SpongeBob is not dealing with a greedy boss or a grumpy neighbor, but with something much larger, much stranger, and much harder to understand. And the way SpongeBob handles these moments tells us something about his happiness that nothing else in the series can. The first time SpongeBob encounters something truly beyond his understanding is in the Season 1 episode, Rock Bottom. SpongeBob and Patrick take the wrong bus home from Glove World, a glove-themed amusement park. The bus does not just take them to the wrong neighborhood. It drives straight down a 90-degree cliff and drops them into a place called Rock Bottom. Rock Bottom is not like anywhere else SpongeBob has ever been. It is deep in the ocean, far below Bikini Bottom, in a zone where almost no light reaches. The creatures who live there are strange, deep-sea animals with glowing parts and bizarre shapes. They speak a language SpongeBob cannot understand, adding raspberry sounds between every word. The clocks have warped numbers. The letters on signs are twisted and rearranged. Nothing works the way it is supposed to. Patrick gets on a bus and leaves almost immediately, accidentally abandoning SpongeBob in this alien place. And SpongeBob is alone, completely alone, in a city he does not understand, surrounded by creatures he cannot communicate with no obvious way home. Every time he tries to catch a bus, it leaves without him. He waits in a line that stretches hundreds of people long. When he finally gets to the front, the ticket seller tells him the last bus just left, and it was the last one until morning. Then the lights shut off. SpongeBob is standing in what he calls advanced darkness, total blackness. He hears a strange raspberry sound getting closer and closer, and he does not know what is making it. He backs up against the cliff, terrified, yelling out a weak threat into the dark. And then a light appears. It is a friendly anglerfish creature who found SpongeBob's lost balloon from Glove World. The creature blows up the balloon, ties it to SpongeBob's wrist, and the air inside lifts SpongeBob up the cliff and all the way back to Bikini Bottom. He lands in front of his house, the balloon pops, and that is the end of the episode. But think about what SpongeBob just went through. He was dropped into an environment that operates on completely different rules than his own world. He was abandoned by his best friend. He was trapped with no way out. He experienced total darkness and the terror of being approached by something unknown. And by the next episode, it is as if none of it ever happened. No fear of buses, no nightmares about rock bottom, no lasting effect of any kind. SpongeBob touched something genuinely frightening and unknowable, and his happiness absorbed it the same way his body absorbs punches. It just disappeared into him without leaving a mark. But rock bottom is a quick scare. It is one night in a strange place. The episode Spongehenge from season 5 takes SpongeBob somewhere much darker and keeps him there for much, much longer. The episode starts with a powerful windstorm hitting Bikini Bottom. The wind blows through SpongeBob's pores and creates music. Beautiful, strange music that comes from SpongeBob's body without him trying to make it. And the jellyfish love it. They swarm to him. Not a few jellyfish, hundreds of them. They surround him and will not leave. SpongeBob cannot go to work. He cannot walk down the street. He cannot live his life because the jellyfish are attached to the sound his body makes, and they refuse to let him go. He tries to hide at Patrick's house, but a jellyfish gets in and stings Patrick, and Patrick throws SpongeBob out. He runs to a cave in Jellyfish Fields and hides there. And he stays in that cave for a very, very long time. Long enough to grow a full beard. Long enough to start losing his grip on reality. He builds a stone replica of himself to keep him company and starts talking to it like it is a real person. He serves it tea. He has conversations with it. SpongeBob, the most social creature in the ocean, the person who cannot go 5 minutes without trying to interact with someone, is sitting in a cave talking to a rock because there is nobody else. Eventually, SpongeBob figures out that if he builds giant stone replicas of himself with the right-sized holes, the wind will blow through them and create music that the jellyfish like even more than the music from his real body. He carves enormous stone SpongeBobs and pushes them into jellyfish fields, forming a circle. The plan works. The jellyfish swarm to the stone statues and leave SpongeBob alone. He is free. He can finally go home. But when he runs back to Bikini Bottom, everything has changed. The Krusty Krab is buried in sand. The building is sinking into the ground. The town looks deserted. SpongeBob stares at the ruins of the restaurant where he has spent his entire adult life and says one thing: "How long have I been gone?" And then he screams. One long, desperate, heartbroken scream into the emptiness. And then the episode jumps forward 3,000 years. A group of alien creatures are standing in jellyfish fields, taking pictures of the stone SpongeBob statues. They do not know who built them. They do not know why they were built. The only clue is that the sound the wind makes through the statues attracts jellyfish. SpongeBob's name is forgotten. His story is gone. The only thing left of him is a circle of rocks that nobody understands. This is not a regular SpongeBob episode. This is something that belongs in a completely different kind of story. A story about time swallowing a person whole, about existence being so small and so temporary that 3,000 years can erase every trace of who you were and why you mattered. SpongeBob built those statues to survive. He spent what seems like weeks or months alone in a cave, slowly losing his mind, talking to rocks, just to solve a problem caused by his own body making sounds he could not control. And his reward for surviving was coming home to discover that everything he loved was gone. And the show never addresses it again. The next episode, SpongeBob is back at the Krusty Krab. Everything is normal. Squidward is at the cash register. Mr. Krabs is in his office. Patrick is under his rock. It is as if Spongehenge never happened. As if SpongeBob did not just experience something that should have shattered his understanding of the world and his place in it. As if time itself did not just show him that everything he cares about is temporary and will eventually be forgotten. This is the part of SpongeBob's existence that goes beyond bad bosses and ungrateful friends. This is the universe telling SpongeBob that he is small, that he does not matter in the grand scheme of things, that his joy and his pain and his Krabby Patties and his friendships will all be buried in sand eventually, and 3,000 years from now, nobody will even remember his name. And SpongeBob's response to this message from the universe is the same as his response to everything else. He goes back to work. He picks up his spatula. He smiles. He says he is ready. Because SpongeBob's happiness does not just survive people being cruel to him. It does not just survive his body being destroyed. It survives the knowledge that none of it means anything, that the entire world he loves is temporary, that he is a speck in an ocean that does not care whether he exists or not. And that is the final piece. That is what makes SpongeBob's happiness complete in its impossibility. A normal person can be happy despite a bad job. A strong person can be happy despite physical pain. A truly remarkable person might even be happy despite rejection and betrayal. But nobody, no character in fiction and no person in reality, can stare into the void of cosmic meaninglessness, see that everything they love will be buried and forgotten, and go right back to flipping burgers with a smile on their face. Nobody except SpongeBob. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Which means it is finally time to put all of this together. Everything we have seen. The exploitation, the betrayal, the soul selling, the rejection, the identity crises, the physical destruction, the cosmic emptiness, all of it. And ask the question that this entire video has been building toward. The question that turns SpongeBob SquarePants from a silly cartoon character into something that, once you see it, you can never quite unsee. What is SpongeBob's happiness actually made of? And why, when you finally understand the answer, is it the most terrifying thing in all of fiction? Section 11. What SpongeBob's happiness is actually made of. We have now looked at SpongeBob SquarePants from every angle there is to look at him. We have watched him get exploited by his boss, who pays him a nickel a year and once sold his soul for 62 cents. We have watched him get rejected by every person he loves on the same day, walk out of Bikini Bottom, lose his memory, and build an entirely new life as a stranger named Cheesehead Brownpants. We have watched him lose his identity over a missing pickle, fall apart when his spatula broke, and give up on himself completely in a trench during the movie when Mr. Krabs called him just a kid. We have watched his body get shattered, ripped in half, dehydrated to a crisp, punched for a week straight, and used as a tennis ball by hired thugs. We have watched the universe strand him in the alien darkness of rock bottom, trap him alone in a cave for so long he grew a beard and started talking to a rock, and show him that 3,000 years from now, everything he ever loved will be buried in sand and forgotten by creatures who do not even know his name. And after all of that, every single bit of it, SpongeBob wakes up the next morning and says the same thing he has said since the very first episode. I'm ready. So now we can finally answer the question, what is SpongeBob's happiness actually made of? And why is the answer terrifying? Let us start by ruling out what it is not. SpongeBob's happiness is not optimism. Optimism is when you believe things will get better. SpongeBob does not believe things will get better because he does not think they are bad in the first place. An optimist sees the dark and hopes for light. SpongeBob does not see the dark at all. SpongeBob's happiness is not resilience either. Resilience is when something hurts you and you recover. You feel the pain, you process it, you heal, and you move on stronger than before. SpongeBob does not do this. He does not process what happens to him. He does not grow from it. He does not come back stronger. He comes back exactly the same. The SpongeBob who walks into the Krusty Krab the morning after Mr. Krabs sold his soul is identical to the SpongeBob who walked in the morning before. Nothing changed. Nothing was learned. Nothing was carried forward. That is not resilience. Resilience leaves marks. SpongeBob has no marks. SpongeBob's happiness is not ignorance. Patrick Star is ignorant. Patrick does not know what is happening around him because he genuinely cannot understand it. His brain does not process the world in a way that would allow him to see the bad things. But SpongeBob is not Patrick. SpongeBob is smart. He can hold a job. He can follow complex recipes. He can build a functioning rocket ship out of boat parts. He can construct enormous stone statues by himself in a cave. He can recognize when someone is being mean to him because he does cry. He cried 43 times before 2 in the afternoon in A Day Without Tears. He sobbed when Squidward slammed the door. He wept when Mr. Krabs sold his soul. He broke down completely when he was fired. He is not unaware of pain. He feels it. He feels everything. He just does not hold on to it. And that is the key. That is the thing that makes SpongeBob different from every other character in fiction. SpongeBob feels pain, but pain does not stick to him. It passes through him the way Flats the Flounder's punches pass through his body. He absorbs it, and then it is gone. Not suppressed, not buried, not denied. Gone, like it was never there. His emotional system works exactly like his physical system. Damage happens, and then it is undone. Feelings break, and then they reset. His default state restores itself automatically, without effort, without choice, without any input from SpongeBob at all. And that is what makes it terrifying. Because happiness that is a choice is beautiful. A person who looks at a difficult life and chooses to find joy in it is inspiring. A person who has every reason to be sad and decides to be happy anyway is someone we admire and want to be like. But SpongeBob does not choose his happiness. He does not decide to be happy every morning. He does not look at his life and make a brave choice to smile anyway. His happiness is not a decision. It is a default setting. It is what he returns to when everything else is stripped away. It runs underneath his pain, underneath his tears, underneath his breakdowns, underneath his identity crises, and it waits. It waits for the crying to stop, and then it comes back. Every time, without fail, without exception, without SpongeBob having any say in the matter. Think about what that means. SpongeBob cannot choose to be unhappy. We saw this in A Day Without Tears. He tried not to cry for one day, and it nearly destroyed him. The tears built up inside him until they exploded at midnight and flooded Bikini Bottom. His emotions are not under his control. They happen to him. The happiness happens to him. The crying happens to him. And the happiness always wins because it is built deeper into him than anything else. Deeper than memory, because he was happy even when he forgot his own name. Deeper than identity, because he was happy as Cheesehead Brown Pants. Deeper than his body, because he is happy even after being ripped in half and put back together. Deeper than his understanding of the universe, because he is happy even after the universe showed him that nothing lasts. This is not a character trait. This is a condition. SpongeBob's happiness is something that happens to him, the way breathing happens to him. He does not control it. He cannot turn it off. He cannot modify it. He cannot learn from his experiences and adjust his emotional responses, because his emotional responses are not connected to his experiences. They are connected to something else, something underneath everything, something that we never see and SpongeBob himself probably does not know is there. A mechanism, a system, a program running in the background of his existence that says, no matter what happens, return to happy. No matter what breaks, fix it. No matter what is lost, forget it. No matter what the world does, smile. And when you see SpongeBob this way, every sweet moment in the show becomes something else entirely. Every time SpongeBob forgives Mr. Krabs, it is not kindness. It is an inability to hold a grudge. Every time he shows up at Squidward's door with a smile after being told to go away, it is not persistence born from love. It is a reset that erased the rejection. Every time he bounces back from having his body destroyed, it is not bravery. It is a system that does not give him the option of staying down. SpongeBob is not choosing to be the happiest character in fiction. He is trapped in it. And that is why holding him up next to Squidward is so devastating. Because Squidward is miserable, but Squidward's misery is real. It belongs to him. He earned it through years of disappointment and failed dreams and working a job he hates. His feelings match his life. His emotional state is a genuine response to his genuine circumstances. Squidward owns his sadness the way a person owns anything they built with their own hands. It is his. SpongeBob does not own his happiness. His happiness owns him. It decides when he smiles. It decides when he recovers. It decides when the tears stop and the joy comes back. SpongeBob is not driving. He is a passenger in his own emotional life, and the thing that is driving will not stop for anything. Not for exploitation, not for betrayal, not for physical destruction, not for the heat death of everything he has ever loved. It just keeps going. And it will keep going long after SpongeBob has any reason for it to exist. We saw this in Spongehenge. 3,000 years after SpongeBob and everyone he knew are gone, the statues he built are still standing, and the wind is still making music through their holes. The echo of SpongeBob's existence is still producing something beautiful, long after the person who created it has been forgotten. That is what his happiness is. It is the wind through the holes. It is a force that passes through him and creates something that looks like joy, but it does not belong to him, and he cannot stop it. So when we say that SpongeBob is the happiest character in fiction, we need to understand what we are actually saying. We are not saying that SpongeBob found a way to be happy that the rest of us should try to learn from. We are not saying that his attitude is something to admire or copy. We are saying that SpongeBob is a creature who experiences every form of suffering that exists, emotional, physical, and existential, and none of it changes him. He cannot be changed. He is locked into joy the way other creatures are locked into breathing, and a creature that cannot be changed by its experiences, that cannot learn from pain, that cannot grow from loss, that smiles through everything not because it chose to, but because it has no other option, is not an inspiring figure. It is a deeply unsettling one. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. And yet, And yet there is one more thing to say about SpongeBob SquarePants. One final thing that takes everything we have discussed and turns it one more time. Because the truth about SpongeBob's happiness is not just that it is a condition he cannot control. There is something else about it, something that only becomes visible when you step all the way back and look at the full picture of his life, from help wanted all the way to now, and ask one last question, a question that does not have a clean answer. And that might be the reason this yellow sponge in square pants has stayed with us for over 25 years. Section 12, and why that's terrifying and why we love him anyway. Here is the question, after everything we have seen, after the exploitation and the betrayal and the soul selling and the rejection and the tears and the breakdowns and the physical destruction and the cosmic emptiness and the 3,000 years of sand burying everything SpongeBob ever loved. After all of that, here is the one question that remains. If SpongeBob's happiness is a condition he cannot control, if it is a mechanism that runs without his permission and resets him to joy no matter what the world does to him, then why does it matter? Why does it still feel like something? Why, after 25 years and over 270 episodes, does watching SpongeBob SquarePants wake up and say, "I'm ready," still make people smile? Why does a character whose happiness we just spent this entire video proving is automatic and involuntary still make us feel something warm when we watch him? Because here's the thing about SpongeBob that makes him different from a machine. A machine that smiles no matter what would be creepy. A robot programmed to be happy would be unsettling and nothing else. We would look at it and feel nothing, the way we feel nothing when a toy makes a sound after you press its button. But SpongeBob is not a machine. He is something much more complicated and much more confusing than that. Because even though his happiness resets automatically, even though it runs without his control, even though it survives things that no genuine emotion should be able to survive, SpongeBob does something with his happiness that a machine never could. He gives it away. Think about every episode we have talked about. Think about pizza delivery, where SpongeBob walked across the ocean floor carrying a pizza for a customer he had never met, because he believed that delivering it was the most important thing he could do. He did not get thanked for it. The customer slammed the door in his face because he forgot the drink. SpongeBob sat on the ground and cried. But before that, before the rejection, he spent the entire episode pouring every ounce of himself into making sure a stranger got a warm pizza. That was his happiness being turned outward, being used for someone else. Think about Christmas Who, where SpongeBob introduced the entire city of Bikini Bottom to Christmas. He wrote a letter to Santa Claus. He convinced everyone to celebrate. He built a tradition from nothing, based purely on his own excitement and his desire to share something beautiful with the people around him. When Santa did not show up and the whole town turned on him, mocking him for believing, SpongeBob still gave Squidward a handmade clarinet reed, a gift made with his own hands, for a person who had spent the entire episode telling him he was an idiot for believing in Santa. And that gift was so pure, so genuine, that it broke through Squidward's wall. Squidward dressed up as Santa, gave away every possession he owned, and made SpongeBob's dream come true. Not because anyone forced him to, because SpongeBob's happiness, when it is pointed at someone, is the most powerful force in Bikini Bottom. It changes people, even people who do not want to be changed. Think about Dying for Pie, where Squidward thought SpongeBob had eaten a bomb and was going to die at sunset. Squidward spent the entire day doing whatever SpongeBob wanted, trying to make his last hours beautiful. They watched the sunset together on a hill. Squidward was in tears, and the whole reason they were in that situation was because SpongeBob wanted to give Squidward a Best Friends Day gift. Because that is what SpongeBob does with his happiness. He does not keep it. He does not hoard it. He does not sit in his pineapple and enjoy being happy by himself. He takes it and he shoves it into the lives of everyone around him, whether they want it or not. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, It makes their lives better. Squidward's life is better because of SpongeBob. Not easier, not quieter, not more pleasant on a daily basis, but better. The few moments of genuine warmth and connection that Squidward has experienced in the entire run of the show have all come from SpongeBob. The pizza slam, the Santa suit, the Bubble Bowl performance, the handmade gifts, the unshakable loyalty. Every crack in Squidward's wall of misery was put there by SpongeBob's relentless, impossible, involuntary happiness being pushed outward into the world. And that is what separates SpongeBob from a machine. A machine that is programmed to be happy stays happy inside itself and does nothing with it. SpongeBob takes his happiness and turns it into action. He cooks for people. He gives gifts to people. He forgives people. He shows up at people's doors and refuses to leave them alone because he believes, somewhere deep in that part of himself that cannot be reached by pain or memory loss or cosmic horror, that being around other people is what happiness is for. Is it a choice? We have established that it probably is not. SpongeBob probably cannot help giving his happiness away, any more than he can help having it in the first place. It is part of the same system, the same condition, the same mechanism that keeps him smiling no matter what. But does that make it less real? If SpongeBob cannot choose to stop caring about Squidward, does that mean his care does not count? If SpongeBob's love for Patrick is a default setting rather than a decision, does that mean it is not love? This is where it gets complicated. This is where the terrifying part and the beautiful part of SpongeBob become the same thing, because the answer is that it does not matter. It does not matter whether SpongeBob's happiness is a choice or a condition. It does not matter whether his kindness is voluntary or automatic. It does not matter whether his love is something he decided to feel or something he was built to produce, because the effect is the same. The pizza still gets delivered. The Christmas gift still gets made. The clarinet reed still shows up on Squidward's doorstep. The smile still appears at the window every morning, no matter how many times the door gets slammed. The result of SpongeBob's happiness, the thing it creates in the world around him, is real, even if the happiness itself is something he cannot control. And maybe that is why he has lasted 25 years. Maybe that is why a children's cartoon about a sea sponge who flips burgers has become one of the most watched, most quoted, most analyzed pieces of fiction ever created. Because SpongeBob SquarePants holds two completely opposite ideas at the same time and makes both of them true. His happiness is terrifying because it cannot be stopped. It does not respond to reality. It does not grow from experience. It does not learn from pain. It runs on its own fuel, by its own rules, and it will outlast everything and everyone in SpongeBob's life, including SpongeBob himself. We saw the proof of that in Spongehenge. 3,000 years from now, the echo of his joy is still there, still making music, still attracting jellyfish, long after every friend, every enemy, every Krabby Patty, and every memory of who SpongeBob was has been turned to dust. And his happiness is beautiful because he never keeps it. Every morning, this strange yellow creature wakes up with more joy than any one person should be able to hold. And instead of sitting with it, instead of enjoying it alone, he runs out his door and starts giving it to everyone he sees. He gives it to a boss who does not deserve it. He gives it to a neighbor who does not want it. He gives it to a best friend who does not understand it. He gives it to strangers and customers, and even to the creatures of rock bottom who cannot speak his language. He gives and gives and gives, and the world takes and takes and takes, and none of it matters, because tomorrow morning, the tank is full again, and SpongeBob is back at the door with the same impossible, unexplainable, terrifying, beautiful smile. That is SpongeBob SquarePants. He is not the happiest character in fiction because he found the secret to a good life. He is the happiest character in fiction because something inside him, something deeper than thought, deeper than memory, deeper than pain, deeper than time itself, decided a long time ago that joy was his default state, and that nothing the universe could do would ever be enough to change it. And the terrifying part is not that he is happy. The terrifying part is that you cannot look at him and say he is wrong. Because look at what his happiness built. Look at the friendships it sustained. Look at the hearts it softened. Look at the cold, miserable octopus next door, who dressed up as Santa Claus and gave away everything he owned because a sponge in square pants gave him a handmade clarinet reed on Christmas Eve. Look at the town that fell apart every time SpongeBob left it and came back together every time he returned. Look at the statues standing in jellyfish fields 3,000 years from now, still singing, still beautiful, still proof that SpongeBob SquarePants was here. His happiness might be a condition. It might be automatic. It might be something he never chose and can never control. But the world it built was real. The people it touched were real. The moments it created, the moments that broke through even Squidward's armor, were real. And if a happiness that was never chosen can still create things that are real and good and lasting, then maybe the question of whether it was a choice or not does not matter as much as we think it does. Maybe what matters is not where the happiness comes from. Maybe what matters is where it goes. SpongeBob SquarePants does not know where his happiness comes from. He has never asked. He probably never will. But every single day, without fail, without exception, without any force in the universe being able to stop him, he picks it up, carries it out his front door, and hands it to the world. If you enjoyed this video essay, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.